The water looks harmless at first. Shallow, sunlit, often calm enough to lull swimmers into the belief that danger announces itself with teeth or speed or size. But here, in warm coastal seas, the deadliest weapon in the ocean does not chase, does not roar, and does not even need to be noticed to win. The box jellyfish drifts through the water column like a structural flaw in reality itself, a living absence defined more by what you fail to see than by what you do. Its bell is nearly transparent, refracting light just enough to disappear against rippling sand and sun glare. Its tentacles, long and impossibly thin, trail behind like loose threads in the fabric of the sea. There is no warning coloration, no dramatic movement, no predatory display. The first sign of danger is often confusion, followed by pain that seems disconnected from any visible cause. By the time the body understands what has happened, the damage is already systemic. This animal's power begins with invisibility, but not the simple invisibility of camouflage. The box jellyfish exploits the physics of light underwater, where contrast collapses and edges blur. Its tissues are composed mostly of water, and the refractive index of its body closely matches that of the surrounding sea. In bright tropical shallows, where sunlight scatters into shifting bands and reflections fracture the visual field, the jellyfish becomes effectively unrendered. Even trained observers struggle to track one in motion. For an unprepared swimmer, the animal does not appear as an object at all. It appears as nothing until sensation erupts where there should have been empty space. The tentacles are the real weapon, and they are engineered for contact without detection. Each tentacle can stretch for several meters, yet remains thinner than a shoelace, drifting with minimal disturbance to the water. They do not thrash or lash unless provoked. They hang, suspended, waiting for something else to move into them. This is the first unfair advantage. The jellyfish does not hunt in the way predators usually do. It sets a biological tripwire and allows the environment to deliver prey. Fish, turtles, and humans alike become victims, not because the jellyfish is fast, but because they are moving through what appears to be empty water. When contact occurs, it is not a bite or a sting in the conventional sense. The tentacles are lined with millions of microscopic capsules called nematocysts, each one a pressurized weapon built to fire faster than any reflex in the animal kingdom. Triggered by a combination of chemical and mechanical cues, these capsules explode outward, firing barbed tubules into the skin with enough force to penetrate flesh instantly. The speed is so extreme that it bypasses pain receptors at first. The nervous system does not immediately register injury because the signal arrives after the venom has already been delivered. This is why victims often describe a moment of strange numbness or delayed realization, a brief window where the brain knows something is wrong but cannot yet name it. The venom itself is not a single toxin, but a cocktail designed to collapse the body from the inside. Unlike venoms that primarily target nerves or blood clotting, box jellyfish venom attacks cell membranes directly. It forms pores in the walls of red blood cells and heart muscle cells, causing them to rupture. This leads to a sudden release of potassium into the bloodstream, a biochemical catastrophe that disrupts the electrical signaling of the heart. The result can be immediate cardiovascular failure, sometimes within minutes of contact. The heart does not simply stop from pain or shock. It is chemically forced into chaos, its rhythm scrambled by an internal environment it can no longer regulate. This is the second unfair advantage. The venom does not rely on dose in the way many toxins do. Even relatively small areas of contact can deliver enough venom to trigger systemic collapse, especially in smaller bodies or when tentacles wrap around the torso. The wrapping itself is passive. The tentacles adhere on contact, their barbs anchoring deeper as the victim struggles. Movement only increases surface area exposure, firing more nematocysts and injecting more venom. Panic accelerates circulation, spreading the toxin faster. The animal does not tighten its grip or pursue. It simply lets physics and physiology finish the job. Pain, when it arrives fully, is extreme, but almost secondary to the real danger. Survivors describe it as burning, crushing, or electrifying, yet pain alone is not what kills. This is another reason the box jellyfish is so deceptive. pain suggests injury that can be endured. What happens here is closer to a biological ambush, where the visible sensation distracts from the invisible collapse underway inside the chest. In severe cases, victims can lose consciousness before they are able to reach shore, not because they are overwhelmed by pain, but because their heart can no longer maintain blood pressure. Drowning becomes a secondary effect, not the primary cause. Ecologically, this weapon makes sense. Box jellyfish are active hunters compared to most jellyfish, capable of directional movement and even basic visual processing. They possess clusters of eyes, some with lenses, allowing them to navigate around obstacles and remain within productive hunting zones, like mangrove channels and shallow reefs. Their venom must work quickly because their prey includes fast, agile fish that cannot be subdued through entanglement alone. A venom that incapacitates the heart ensures that even brief contact is fatal. In evolutionary terms, this is efficiency taken to its logical extreme. What makes this adaptation especially dangerous to humans is that it evolved without us in mind. There is no selective pressure to spare large mammals wading into coastal waters. The venom is calibrated for fish physiology, yet it interacts disastrously with human cardiovascular systems because the underlying cellular mechanisms are conserved across vertebrates. Heart muscle cells rely on tightly controlled ion gradients to function. Disrupt those gradients and the system fails regardless of species. The box jellyfish does not need a human-specific toxin. Its existing weapon happens to align perfectly with our most vulnerable internal processes. The delayed pain response also has a biological explanation rooted in how nematocysts deliver venom. The initial penetration damages tissue mechanically, but the most intense pain arises from inflammatory cascades and nerve sensitization that take time to develop. By the time the burning sensation peaks, venom proteins have already bound to cell membranes and begun their destructive work. This delay creates a cruel mismatch between perception and reality. The body feels as though it is being injured now, when in fact, the critical injury has already occurred. In the broader ecosystem, box jellyfish occupy a role that is both predator and regulator. Their presence influences where fish schools move and where other animals choose to forage. Even sea turtles, which can sometimes tolerate jellyfish venom better than mammals, show avoidance behaviors around dense box jellyfish populations. Humans, lacking evolutionary history with this predator, misinterpret calm water as safe water. The jellyfish thrives in exactly these conditions, where turbulence is low and visibility is deceptively high. Beaches become lethal not during storms, but during perfect weather. This mismatch between appearance and risk is what makes the box jellyfish the ocean's most unfair weapon. Sharks announce themselves through size and movement. Crocodiles rely on ambush, but still occupy visible space. Even venomous fish display spines or warning patterns. The box jellyfish offers no such negotiation. It removes the option of avoidance by removing itself from perception. You cannot react to what your senses do not register. By the time contact is made, the interaction is already over in evolutionary terms. Survival, when it occurs, often depends on rapid external intervention rather than the body's own defenses. Vinegar can deactivate unfired nematocysts, preventing additional venom delivery, but it does nothing to reverse venom already in the bloodstream. Antivenom exists, but must be administered quickly and is not always effective against severe envenomation. This reality underscores how absolute the jellyfish's advantage is. Once the venom has entered circulation, modern medicine is often reduced to supportive care, attempting to keep the heart functioning while the body clears the toxin. There is no antidote to cellular membranes that have already been perforated. In the end, the box jellyfish is not terrifying because it is aggressive or monstrous in appearance. It is terrifying because it represents a form of lethality stripped of drama. It is a predator that wins by not being noticed, by letting ordinary movement become a fatal mistake. Its tentacles do not chase you. They wait for you to arrive. Its venom does not threaten. It simply executes a biochemical program that evolution refined long before humans entered the water. In a sea filled with claws, teeth, and speed, this quiet transparency is what makes the box jellyfish the most unforgiving predator of all. The reef looks quiet at low tide, almost disappointingly still. Sunlight pours through shallow water and fractures across sand and coral rubble, creating a mosaic of textures that feels benign, even welcoming. This is the zone where people relax their vigilance. Shoes come off, movement slow. Feet drift down toward the seabed with the casual confidence that danger announces itself loudly in nature. But here, danger does not move at all. It waits. The stonefish exists not as an animal you notice, but as part of the ground itself. A biological impersonation so complete that the human brain categorizes it as scenery. And that is precisely the point. The stonefish does not hide in the reef. It becomes the reef. Its body is squat, irregular, and textured with knuckles, pits, algae-like growths, and skin filaments that break up its outline in every direction. Pigments vary wildly between individuals, matching local rock, coral rubble, or sand tones with uncanny accuracy. Browns fade into grays, mottled yellows dissolve into dark reds, all arranged in asymmetrical patterns that defeat pattern recognition. The human visual system is excellent at spotting symmetry, movement, and edges. The stonefish offers none of these. It is lumpy where fish are smooth, static where life is expected to flicker, and indistinct where eyes search for form. Even experienced divers can hover directly above one without realizing they are looking at a living animal. This camouflage is not just visual. The stonefish's behavior reinforces the illusion. It does not dart away when shadows pass overhead. It does not flinch at vibrations. It remains motionless for hours, sometimes days, allowing sediment to settle across its body. Algae and microorganisms colonize its skin, further erasing any sign of life. To prey, this stillness suggests safety. To humans, it suggests emptiness. The seabed becomes something you step on, not something that steps back. The moment of contact is deceptively ordinary. A foot comes down, compressing what feels like rock or coral. There is no warning movement, no sudden sting like that of a jellyfish. Instead, the body's own weight drives the injury. Along the stonefish's back run a series of stout dorsal spines, each connected to venom glands at their base. These spines are not hollow needles. They are rigid, reinforced structures designed to puncture under pressure. When stepped on, the spines penetrate upward into the foot, and only then does venom surge along grooves into the wound. The animal does not actively inject venom. It uses the force of the intruder against them. The more weight applied, the deeper the penetration, and the greater the venom delivery. This mechanism makes the stonefish especially cruel to humans because it punishes instinctive reactions. Stepping harder, shifting weight, or trying to pull away quickly increases damage. Each movement grinds spines deeper, tearing tissue and driving venom further into muscle. Pain erupts almost immediately, but pain alone is not the full story. Stonefish venom is a complex mixture of proteins that attack multiple systems at once. It disrupts nerve signaling, destroys cell membranes, and causes intense inflammation that can lead to swelling so severe it cuts off blood supply. The pain is often described as unbearable, but what makes it life-altering is what follows beneath the surface. Venom components cause local tissue necrosis, meaning cells begin to die around the wound site. In severe cases, this can lead to permanent damage, including loss of mobility, chronic pain, or even the need for surgical intervention. Unlike venom that spreads rapidly through the bloodstream, stonefish venom concentrates its effects locally at first, turning the foot into a battlefield where inflammation, cellular destruction, and nerve damage unfold simultaneously. The body responds by flooding the area with immune cells and fluid, causing swelling that can double or triple the size of the foot. Shoes become impossible. Walking becomes unthinkable. Even after anti-venom or hot water treatment, recovery can take months, not days. The hot water treatment itself reveals something important about the venom's nature. Stonefish venom proteins are heat sensitive. Immersing the affected area in hot water can denature these proteins, reducing their activity. This is not folk medicine. It is biochemistry in action. But even this response highlights the unfairness of the encounter. Relief depends on immediate access to appropriate care. In remote reefs, shallow lagoons or isolated beaches, that care may be hours away. During that time, venom continues its work and panic compounds injury. A single careless step becomes a logistical crisis, often requiring evacuation, not because the victim is dying, but because the injury is too severe to manage in place. From an ecological perspective, the stonefish's weapon is defensive, not predatory. It does not use venom to hunt. It uses it to ensure that nothing learns the wrong lesson. Any animal large enough to step on a stonefish represents an existential threat. The venom guarantees that the encounter ends immediately, discouraging future contact through extreme consequence. This is why the venom is so potent. Evolution did not favor moderation here. It favored certainty. Predators that bite down on a stonefish's back learn quickly or do not learn at all. Yet the stonefish is not passive in its ecological role. It is an ambush predator, feeding primarily on small fish and crustaceans that wander too close. Its upward-facing mouth creates a vacuum when it strikes, sucking prey in before they register movement. This feeding strategy complements its camouflage perfectly. By blending into the seabed, the stonefish turns the act of approaching shelter into a fatal mistake for prey. The same illusion that protects it from harm enables it to hunt efficiently with minimal energy expenditure. In warm, shallow waters where oxygen levels fluctuate and competition is high, conserving energy is survival. The irony is that humans are injured not because they are prey, but because they fail to recognize the reef as alive. Walking feels safe because the water is shallow. Shallow feels safe because visibility is good. Good visibility feels safe because danger is assumed to be visible. The stonefish dismantles that logic entirely. It is dangerous precisely because it is visible but unreadable. You can look directly at it and still see nothing. This mismatch between human perception and ecological reality explains why stonefish injuries are often described as freak accidents. They are not freak accidents. They are predictable outcomes of entering an environment where the ground itself has evolved teeth. In coral reefs, the distinction between surface and organism is blurred. Many species grow on, into, and through each other. The stonefish takes this principle to its extreme, becoming indistinguishable from the substrate it depends on. Long-term consequences of stonefish envenomation are often overlooked in popular accounts. Survivors may experience persistent nerve pain, reduced sensitivity, or altered gait long after the initial injury heals. Scar tissue can limit flexibility. Psychological effects are also common. People who have been stung often describe lasting anxiety around shallow water, an understandable response when the injury came not from an attack, but from trust in the ground beneath them. Nature did not betray them. Their assumptions did. In the broader reef system, the stonefish serves as a reminder that not all defenses are visible or negotiable. Warning colors and displays work when predators are capable of learning without dying. When learning must be immediate and absolute, evolution favors pain so severe it overrides behavior permanently. The stonefish's venom does exactly that. It teaches through consequence, not warning. For humans, the lesson is uncomfortable because it challenges a deeply ingrained belief that stillness equals safety. On land, immobile threats are rare and usually obvious. In the sea, stillness can be a strategy refined over millions of years. The stonefish does not need to chase you, threaten you, or even acknowledge you. It simply waits for gravity to do the work. The step that changes everything is never dramatic in the moment it begins. It feels like nothing more than bad footing. But within seconds, the body understands that this was not a stumble. It was an encounter with an animal whose entire existence is built around the idea that contact must never be survivable. In that sense, the stonefish is not just venomous. It is instructional. It teaches, brutally and efficiently, that in the ocean, the most dangerous movement is often the one you do without thinking. The water is warm, shallow, and alive with movement. Coral heads rise from the seabed like submerged cities, and between them glide fish in constant negotiation with predators they can see coming. This is not the open ocean, where danger announces itself with speed and mass. This is the reef, and its surrounding shallows, where survival depends on reading subtleties. A shadow that moves against the current, a shape that holds still too long, a color that does not quite belong. And yet one of the most lethal animals in this environment offers almost nothing to read at all. The sea snake slips through the water with unhurried confidence, slender and unassuming, its body patterned in bands or muted tones that blend effortlessly into the reef's visual noise. It is not aggressive. It does not posture. It does not pursue humans. Its danger lies not in what it does, but in how little it needs to do for everything to unravel. Sea snakes are often encountered by accident. A diver's hand brushes against something smooth while steadying near coral. A fisherman disentangles a net and feels a faint pressure, more curious than painful. A swimmer notices a thin body passing nearby and mistakes it for an eel. In these moments, there is no drama. The contact is brief. The sensation is mild. Sometimes there is no immediate sensation at all. The puncture wounds left by sea snake fangs are small, often barely visible, and in many cases they do not bleed. This is where the trap is set. Human instincts are tuned to pain as an early warning system, and here, pain does not arrive on schedule. The venom of sea snakes is among the most potent in the animal kingdom, but its effects are subtle at first because of how it interacts with the body. Unlike venoms that cause immediate burning or swelling, sea snake venom is primarily neurotoxic and myotoxic. It targets nerves and muscle tissue, interfering with communication at the cellular level. When injected, it begins to circulate quietly, binding to receptors and disrupting ion channels that muscles depend on to contract and relax. The process is efficient and devastating, but it is not loud. There is no instant agony to demand attention. Instead, the body continues as if nothing significant has happened, even as the molecular groundwork for collapse is being laid. This delayed response is the sea snake's most dangerous advantage. Victims often underestimate the encounter precisely because it feels insignificant. A small nip, a pinprick, a sensation so mild it barely registers. People return to shore, continue fishing, or swim back to their boat without urgency. Hours later, symptoms begin to emerge, and by then the venom has had time to distribute throughout the body. Muscles start to ache, not sharply but deeply, as though strained from exertion. Jaw stiffness appears. Vision blurs. Swallowing becomes difficult. These signs are easily misinterpreted as dehydration, fatigue, or stress. The absence of a dramatic initial injury encourages denial, and denial is what turns a survivable envenomation into a fatal one. As the venom continues its work, muscle fibers begin to break down, a process known as rhabdomyolysis. This releases myoglobin into the bloodstream, overwhelming the kidneys and leading to renal failure if untreated. At the same time, neurotoxins disrupt the signals that control breathing. The diaphragm weakens. Intercostal muscles lose coordination. The victim remains conscious, aware that something is wrong, but unable to summon strength where it is needed most. Breathing becomes shallow, then irregular. This is not the chaos of a sudden attack. It is a quiet suffocation, unfolding internally while the external world appears unchanged. The sea snake does not require a large dose of venom to achieve this effect. Its venom is highly concentrated because it evolved to immobilize fish quickly in water, where prey must be subdued before it escapes into the reef. Fish physiology shares enough similarities with human physiology that the same toxins act with terrifying efficiency. In evolutionary terms, the venom is over-engineered for humans. It does not need to be this strong to deter us. It is this strong because anything less would fail in the competitive, fast-moving underwater world where prey must be stopped immediately or not at all. Ecologically, sea snakes are specialists. They are fully adapted to marine life, with flattened tails for propulsion, valved nostrils that seal underwater, and lungs that extend much of the length of their bodies, providing buoyancy control as well as respiration. Some species can absorb oxygen directly through their skin, allowing them to remain submerged for extended periods. These adaptations place sea snakes in close, constant contact with humans who fish, dive, and wade in the same coastal zones. Yet interactions remain rare, not because the snakes are harmless, but because they are not inclined to bite unless restrained or startled. When a bite does occur, it is often defensive and incomplete. Sea snakes have relatively small fangs and may deliver a low-volume bite or even a dry bite. This variability further contributes to dangerous complacency. People hear stories of bites that led to no symptoms and assume their experience will be the same. But venom delivery is not a binary event. It is a spectrum, influenced by bite duration, fang placement, and the snake's recent feeding history. The difference between mild symptoms and lethal systemic failure can be a matter of millimeters and seconds. What makes sea snake venom particularly insidious is how it disrupts the body's most basic functions without dramatic warning. There is no swelling to signal infection, no intense pain to force immediate action. The venom attacks from within, targeting systems that fail silently until they cannot function at all. By the time respiratory distress becomes obvious, the window for effective treatment may already be closing. Antivenom exists, but it must be administered before muscle breakdown and respiratory paralysis reach critical levels. Delay is the true killer here, not the venom alone. In the reef ecosystem, this venom serves a clear purpose. Sea snakes hunt agile prey in complex environments. A fish that escapes into coral is often lost. Venom that induces rapid paralysis ensures a successful capture with minimal energy expenditure. The snake does not need to constrict or chase. It bites, releases, and waits as the prey's movements slow and stop. This efficiency allows sea snakes to thrive in environments where competition is fierce and calories are hard-won. Humans, by contrast, are not part of this evolutionary equation. Our bodies are larger, our metabolism's different, but our vulnerability lies in our assumptions. We expect danger to feel dangerous. We expect lethal encounters to be unmistakable. Sea snakes violate these expectations completely. They deliver a life-threatening injury wrapped in the sensory experience of almost nothing. This mismatch between perception and reality is why fatalities occur even among people who know better. Knowledge does not help if the body never sounds the alarm. There is a quiet irony in how sea snakes are perceived. They are often described as shy, gentle, or even curious, and in behavior, this is largely true. They do not pursue humans, and many encounters end without incident. But this reputation contributes to risk. Familiarity breeds carelessness. A snake that does not threaten does not demand respect, and respect is what keeps distance. The venom does not care about reputation. It operates on physiology alone. From a broader perspective, sea snakes exemplify a category of danger that is increasingly relevant as humans expand into marine environments. Not all threats are obvious. Not all injuries announce themselves with urgency. Some of the most lethal adaptations in nature are designed to work quietly, efficiently, and without spectacle. The sea snake's venom is a reminder that survival systems evolved for one context can be catastrophically effective in another. When people die from sea snake bites, it is rarely because they were overwhelmed in the moment. It is because they underestimated what had already happened. A small puncture, no pain worth mentioning, a decision to wait and see. In the time it takes to dismiss the encounter, venom proteins are binding, muscles are failing, and organs are being pushed beyond recovery. By the time fear arrives, it is often too late. In the stillness of tropical waters, the sea snake continues its quiet work, gliding through coral corridors, hunting with precision, and defending itself only when necessary. It does not need aggression or intimidation. Its power lies in subtlety and timing. For humans, the lesson is stark and uncomfortable. In the ocean, the absence of pain does not mean the absence of danger. Sometimes it means the opposite. The water is shallow enough to feel familiar. You can see the bottom, or at least you think you can. Light reflects off ripples, breaking the surface into fragments that distort depth and distance. This is not the open ocean, where danger is expected to come from below, nor is it dry land, where threats announce themselves with sound and movement. This is the boundary zone, the liminal space where water becomes land and land dissolves back into water. It is here, in this narrow band of overlap, that the crocodile becomes nearly unbeatable. Not because it is the fastest predator, or the strongest, or the most intelligent in any abstract sense, but because its entire body, behavior, and physics are tuned to make escape mathematically unlikely once contact is made. A crocodile at rest is almost impossible to separate from its environment. Its skin mirrors the texture and color of muddy banks, decaying vegetation, and shadowed water. Algae often grows across its back, further softening its outline. The eyes and nostrils sit high on the skull, allowing the animal to breathe and watch, while the rest of the body remains submerged and invisible. This posture is not passive. It is a surveillance position, optimized over millions of years to reduce visual signature while maximizing sensory input. From this angle, the crocodile can track movement on land, in water, and at the boundary between the two, all while remaining functionally absent from the scene. The physics of shallow water work in the crocodile's favor. Sound travels differently here. Vibrations are dampened by sediment, and visibility is compromised by glare and refraction. Prey animals rely on early detection to survive, but in this environment, detection is delayed or distorted. The crocodile does not need to stalk in the traditional sense. It waits where prey must pass, often along habitual crossing points, narrow channels, or gently sloping banks. These are places where animals slow down, lower their heads to drink, or commit their weight to unstable footing. The crocodile's ambush begins long before it moves. When it does move, the transition from stillness to violence is almost instantaneous. Despite its bulk, a crocodile can accelerate with shocking speed over very short distances. This is not sustained pursuit. It is explosive release. Powerful tail muscles drive the body forward in a sudden lunge that can cover several body lengths in a fraction of a second. The jaws open wide, not to snap immediately, but to engulf. This distinction matters. The goal is not to bite and release, but to secure a grip that cannot be broken. The jaws close with extraordinary force, but it is the shape and placement that matter more than raw power. Crocodile teeth are conical and interlocking, designed to hold rather than slice. Once closed, the jaws do not need to crush bone to be effective. They simply need to prevent escape. The muscles that close the jaws are among the strongest in the animal kingdom, while the muscles that open them are comparatively weak. This asymmetry reflects evolutionary priorities. The crocodile is not built to manipulate prey delicately. It is built to end mobility instantly. At this point, survival odds collapse not because of a single lethal mechanism, but because multiple systems fail at once. The prey is dragged into water, often before it fully understands what has happened. In shallow environments, water is not deep enough to swim freely, but it is deep enough to destabilize footing. This is critical. Humans and many animals rely on traction and balance to resist force. In knee or waist-deep water, those advantages disappear. The crocodile uses its own mass and the medium itself to negate resistance. Drowning begins immediately, not as a secondary consequence, but as a primary strategy. Crocodiles do not need to suffocate prey completely to win. They only need to deprive it of coordinated movement. Water enters airways, panic accelerates breathing, and muscles consume oxygen faster than it can be replenished. Even strong swimmers lose effectiveness when surprised and restrained. The crocodile, meanwhile, is perfectly comfortable in this chaos. Its heart rate can slow dramatically, conserving oxygen. Its blood chemistry tolerates low oxygen conditions far better than that of mammals. Time is on its side. If the prey continues to resist, the crocodile escalates. This is where the death roll comes into play, a maneuver often misunderstood as a way to tear prey apart. In reality, the death roll is a physics solution to a mechanical problem. The crocodile lacks the ability to chew. Its jaws are designed for holding, not processing. To dismember prey or remove manageable portions, it rotates its entire body rapidly while maintaining a fixed grip. This rotation generates torque that twists limbs, tears tissue, and disorients the victim completely. Underwater, this rotation also creates vortices that further destabilize the prey, making coordinated resistance impossible. For humans, the death roll is almost always catastrophic. Human joints are not designed to withstand rotational forces applied while the body is submerged and off balance. Dislocations, fractures, and spinal injuries can occur within seconds. Even if a limb was somehow freed, the damage is often too severe to allow escape. Muscle control is compromised, pain is overwhelming, and oxygen deprivation accelerates. The body enters survival mode, but the environment offers no leverage, no stable surface from which to push or pull. What makes this sequence especially lethal is how quickly it unfolds. From initial contact to irreversible injury can take only moments. There is no prolonged struggle, no opportunity to reassess or adapt. The crocodile's attack compresses the entire predator-prey interaction into a narrow window where reaction time is irrelevant. Evolution has eliminated unnecessary steps. Stealth ensures proximity. Acceleration ensures capture. Water ensures disorientation. Rotation ensures incapacitation. Each component reinforces the others, creating a system where failure at one stage is compensated by success at another. Ecologically, this efficiency is essential. Crocodiles are energy conservers. They cannot afford frequent failed hunts. Their metabolism is relatively slow, and successful kills may be spaced days or weeks apart. When an opportunity arises, it must be decisive. This pressure has shaped a hunting strategy that minimizes uncertainty. The crocodile does not chase. It does not test. It commits fully once the threshold is crossed. This is why encounters feel less like attacks and more like sudden disappearances. The shallow water environment amplifies this advantage. On land, prey has traction and can sometimes outmaneuver a crocodile over short distances. In deep water, prey may have room to swim or dive unpredictably. Shallow water strips away both options. It is deep enough to remove footing, shallow enough to prevent escape by depth. The crocodile's body, low and elongated, is perfectly suited to this space. It can push against the bottom with its limbs while using its tail for propulsion, maintaining control in conditions that frustrate other large predators. Human survival instincts are poorly matched to this scenario. People instinctively try to pull away, to thrash, to stand up. Each of these actions worsens the situation. Pulling away strengthens the crocodile's grip. Thrashing accelerates exhaustion and oxygen loss. Trying to stand in unstable water wastes precious seconds and exposes the body to rotational force. Even strategies that work against other predators, such as striking sensitive areas, are largely ineffective once the jaws are closed and the body is submerged. There is also a psychological dimension to crocodile attacks that contributes to their lethality. Unlike predators that attack from the front or above, crocodiles often strike from below or behind, outside the victim's field of vision. This creates a moment of cognitive lag where the brain struggles to identify the threat. That delay, even if brief, is enough to eliminate meaningful response. By the time recognition occurs, the mechanics of the attack are already in motion. In ecosystems where crocodiles are apex predators, other animals adapt their behavior accordingly. Prey species alter drinking times, choose steeper banks, or avoid certain crossings altogether. Birds alarm call when crocodiles surface. Mammals approach water cautiously, scanning for subtle signs like ripples or eye reflections. Humans, lacking generational experience in these systems, often fail to read these cues. The absence of visible danger is interpreted as safety, when in reality, it may indicate a predator that has perfected concealment. The crocodile does not need intelligence in the human sense to dominate this environment. Its success lies in integration. Anatomy, behavior, environment, and physics align toward a single outcome. Once the jaws close, the encounter transitions from biological interaction to mechanical inevitability. Survival odds drop, not because the victim did something wrong in that moment, but because the system was never designed to allow recovery after that point. In this sense, the crocodile is not merely a predator. It is an executioner of the shallow water, enforcing boundaries through certainty rather than pursuit. The riverbank, the mangrove edge, the murky shoreline all become zones where mistakes are not corrected, only punished. The crocodile does not chase you for choosing poorly. It waits for gravity, habit, and inattention to do that work on its behalf, and once it acts, the environment itself becomes the weapon, closing around the victim with a finality that leaves little room for survival. The ocean surface gives very little away. From above it looks vast, uniform, and strangely empty, a plane of moving light that conceals far more than it reveals. Beneath that surface, however, exists a vertical battlefield where depth, pressure, and biology determine outcomes long before prey becomes aware it is being hunted. The great white shark operates almost entirely within this unseen dimension. It does not patrol aimlessly. It positions itself with precision, exploiting light angles, thermal gradients, and the limitations of surface-dwelling perception. When the moment comes, the interaction is not prolonged. It is compressed into a single act, whose consequences unfold faster than the body can adapt. Great white sharks are engineered around one central function: the delivery of catastrophic tissue damage in the shortest possible time. Every aspect of their anatomy serves this goal. The body is built for short bursts of acceleration rather than endurance cruising, with dense musculature along the flanks and tail that can generate explosive forward thrust. Their internal physiology allows rapid oxygen delivery to muscle tissue, supporting sudden, violent movement even in cold water. This is not a chase predator. It is a ballistic one. The strike is not designed to be repeated. It is designed to end the interaction immediately. The ambush begins deep. Great whites often hunt from below their prey, using the darker water column as concealment. From this position, the surface becomes a bright, shimmering ceiling that obscures anything rising toward it. Prey, silhouetted against this light, loses depth perception and contrast. Seals, sea lions, and other marine mammals rely heavily on lateral awareness and surface scanning to detect danger. The great white approaches from an angle that bypasses those defenses entirely. The final ascent is rapid and steep, converting stored muscular energy into vertical speed that can carry the shark partially out of the water. At the moment of contact, the outcome is determined not by aggression but by mechanics. The jaws open wide, not in threat, but in preparation for engulfment. The bite force generated by a great white is immense, driven by massive jaw muscles anchored to a reinforced skull structure. But force alone does not explain lethality. It is the distribution of that force across tooth design that matters. Great white teeth are large, triangular, and serrated, arranged in rows that ensure continuous replacement. These serrations act like biological saw blades, concentrating pressure along fine edges that slice cleanly through skin, fat, muscle, and connective tissue. When a great white bites, it does not puncture. It excises. The jaws close and the head often twists slightly, a subtle motion that increases shearing force. Tissue is not crushed so much as separated, resulting in wounds that are wide, deep, and structurally destabilizing. Major blood vessels are often severed instantly. In prey species, this leads to rapid blood loss and shock. In humans, whose circulatory systems are not adapted to withstand such trauma, the effect is immediate and severe. Blood loss is the primary driver of fatality, not infection, not drowning, and not venom. The volume of tissue removed in a single bite can be extraordinary. Muscles that normally protect arteries are stripped away, leaving vessels exposed or torn. The circulatory system responds by dropping blood pressure in an attempt to preserve central organs, but the rate of loss overwhelms compensatory mechanisms. Oxygen delivery to the brain decreases rapidly. Consciousness fades not from fear, but from hypovolemia, a state where there is simply not enough blood left to sustain vital function. Shock compounds this process. The body reacts to massive trauma by releasing stress hormones that increase heart rate and redirect blood flow. This response, useful in minor injuries, becomes counterproductive here. A faster heart pumps blood out of the body more quickly. Peripheral vessels constrict, reducing clot formation at the wound site. The physiological response meant to save life accelerates its loss. Within minutes, sometimes seconds, the body enters a downward spiral that cannot be reversed without immediate advanced medical intervention. What makes this especially unforgiving is that the great white does not need to hold on. Unlike crocodiles or constrictors, it does not rely on sustained contact. A single bite is sufficient to render prey non-viable. In natural hunting scenarios, the shark often releases after the initial strike, allowing the prey to weaken from blood loss before returning. This behavior is not mercy or hesitation. It is strategy. Injured prey becomes slower, less coordinated, and easier to track. Energy expenditure is minimized, and risk is reduced. In the context of human encounters, this strategy has devastating implications. The shark does not need to continue the interaction for it to be fatal. The damage inflicted in the first bite is often already beyond recovery. Even if the shark disengages immediately, the injury remains. Survival then depends entirely on proximity to rescue and speed of medical response. In open water, those conditions are rarely favorable. The clinical nature of this lethality is what makes it particularly unsettling. There is no prolonged struggle, no escalation of violence. The event is brief and decisive. The shark's biology is optimized for this outcome. Its senses are tuned to detect subtle electrical signals generated by muscle contractions, allowing it to locate prey even in low visibility. Its lateral line system picks up pressure waves from movement at the surface. Its vision adapts to low light conditions, and its sense of smell, while often overstated, contributes to tracking injured prey once blood enters the water. Thermoregulation plays a role as well. Great whites possess a form of regional endothermy, allowing them to maintain body temperatures above that of the surrounding water. This gives them a performance advantage in colder environments, where prey may be slowed by reduced muscle efficiency. Warm muscles contract faster and generate more power. This thermal edge supports the explosive acceleration required for ambush strikes and contributes to the force delivered at impact. From an evolutionary perspective, this combination of traits represents a solution to a specific ecological challenge. Marine mammals are large, fast, and powerful. To hunt them successfully, a predator must overcome not only their physical defenses, but also their awareness and social behaviors. A strategy based on endurance pursuit would fail. A strategy based on immediate incapacitation succeeds. The great white embodies that solution. Human vulnerability arises not because we resemble natural prey, but because our bodies respond to trauma in predictable ways. We bleed. We go into shock. We lose consciousness when oxygen delivery drops. These processes are universal across mammals. The shark's bite exploits them without intention or malice. It is not targeting us as prey. It is applying a hunting mechanism that evolved for seals to a body that cannot tolerate its effects. It is worth noting that great white sharks are not indiscriminate killers. Encounters with humans are rare relative to the number of people who enter their habitat. Many bites are exploratory, the shark using its mouth as a sensory organ to investigate unfamiliar objects. But exploration at this scale is incompatible with human survival. A test bite from an animal designed to remove large sections of tissue is still catastrophic. The difference between curiosity and predation becomes irrelevant at the level of injury. In ecosystems where great whites dominate, their presence shapes behavior across multiple trophic levels. Seals alter haul-out patterns. Fish distributions shift. Even whales adjust migration routes. The shark's role is not merely to kill, but to structure the ecosystem through risk. Humans entering these systems do so without the evolutionary memory that informs native species. We misinterpret calm water as safe water, absence of movement as absence of threat. The fear associated with great white sharks often focuses on their size or reputation. In reality, their danger lies in efficiency. They do not need repeated attacks. They do not need prolonged engagement. Their anatomy is built to end interactions before resistance becomes meaningful. This is why survival odds drop so sharply once a bite occurs. It is not because escape is impossible in theory. It is because the body's systems fail too quickly in practice. There is a stark, almost clinical inevitability to this process. Bite force damages tissue. Tooth design amplifies that damage. Blood loss destabilizes circulation. Shock accelerates failure. Consciousness fades. These are not dramatic elements. They are physiological facts. The great white shark does not rely on fear to win. It relies on biology doing what biology always does when pushed beyond its limits. In the end, the great white remains what it has always been, a highly specialized apex predator, perfectly adapted to its role. It does not seek conflict. It does not recognize morality. It operates within the constraints and advantages of its design. When humans intersect with that design at the wrong moment, the outcome is often decided before the mind can catch up. One bite is enough, not because the shark intends to kill, but because evolution has made it so devastatingly good at what it does. The coastline feels deceptively controlled. Waves break in predictable rhythms, sand shifts underfoot in familiar ways, and the water remains shallow enough to suggest shared ownership between land and sea. This is the zone humans claim most confidently, a place of swimming, wading, fishing, and recreation, where danger is assumed to be distant, offshore, or dramatic enough to see coming. But the tiger shark does not belong to the open ocean alone. It is a boundary predator, perfectly adapted to this blurred edge where certainty dissolves and curiosity becomes lethal. Tiger sharks patrol coastlines not as opportunists, but as systematic investigators. Their world is not defined by clear silhouettes or reliable patterns. Nearshore waters are murky, crowded with sensory noise. Sand clouds reduce visibility. River runoff alters salinity. Boat traffic creates overlapping pressure waves. Prey is diverse and unpredictable, ranging from fish and turtles to birds, carcasses, and drifting debris. In this environment, hesitation is costly and specialization is a liability. The tiger shark survives here by being adaptable, inquisitive, and brutally indifferent to error. Unlike ambush specialists that rely on surprise or speed, tiger sharks move with deliberate calm. Their bodies are large and heavy-set, built for steady cruising rather than explosive acceleration. They move slowly, often just below the surface, their dorsal fins sometimes slicing through shallow water as they follow reef edges, drop-offs, and channels. This is not stealth through invisibility. It is stealth through normalcy. A tiger shark does not announce danger because it looks like part of the background rhythm of the sea. The defining feature of the tiger shark is not aggression, but investigation. Its sensory world is rich but ambiguous, especially near shore. Visibility is poor, and many objects do not behave like prey until they are disturbed. Rather than relying solely on vision, tiger sharks use a combination of smell, lateral line detection, electroreception, and tactile feedback to assess potential food. And this is where the teeth come in. Tiger sharks investigate with their mouths because their mouths are their most reliable sensory tools. The teeth are not narrow or needle-like, but broad, serrated, and deeply notched, shaped almost like can openers. This design is not accidental. It allows the shark to cut through a wide range of materials, including bone, shell, cartilage, and even non-biological debris. A single bite provides immediate feedback. Texture, resistance, density, and chemical cues are all registered at once. In evolutionary terms, this makes perfect sense. In coastal waters filled with unfamiliar objects, testing with teeth is efficient. For humans, this behavior is catastrophic, not because the shark intends to kill, but because the testing mechanism is incompatible with human physiology. A tiger shark does not nibble delicately. Its jaws close with significant force, and its teeth are designed to remove material cleanly. Even a brief bite, lasting a fraction of a second, can result in massive tissue loss. Muscles are sliced rather than punctured. Blood vessels are severed rather than compressed. The wound is not exploratory in outcome, even if it was exploratory in intent. Blood loss begins immediately. Nearshore waters, often warm and shallow, accelerate circulation and reduce clotting efficiency. The body responds with shock, redirecting blood toward vital organs while heart rate increases. As with great white encounters, this response worsens hemorrhage. But there is an additional factor here: location. Tiger shark bites often occur close to shore, in water shallow enough for victims to attempt to stand or walk. Movement, panic, and resistance increase bleeding. The shoreline, which feels like safety, becomes a place where gravity and motion work against survival. Tiger sharks are particularly dangerous because of their willingness to engage unfamiliar objects. They are not selective feeders. Their stomach contents have included everything from fish and turtles to birds, crustaceans, trash, and even inedible debris. This generalist diet is not recklessness, it is strategy. Coastal ecosystems are variable and often unstable. Food availability changes with tides, seasons, and human activity. A predator that refuses to test new opportunities will starve. The tiger shark survives by treating uncertainty as something to be resolved physically. Nearshore behavior amplifies this risk. Tiger sharks frequently patrol areas where prey enters or exits the water, including river mouths, estuaries, reef passes, and beaches. These zones are rich in nutrients and movement. Fish congregate. Turtles migrate. Carcasses wash in. Humans swim, surf, and fish. To the shark's sensory systems, many of these signals overlap. A struggling fish, a splashing swimmer, and floating debris can produce similar pressure patterns and electrical signals. Vision alone cannot reliably distinguish them. When a tiger shark approaches a potential target, it often does so slowly, circling or passing close. This behavior is sometimes misinterpreted as curiosity or caution. In reality, it is information gathering. The shark is sampling chemical gradients, pressure changes, and electrical cues. If uncertainty remains, the mouth resolves it. The bite is not an attack in the emotional sense. It is a decision point. Unfortunately, that decision point carries consequences that humans cannot survive. The teeth themselves are uniquely suited to nearshore feeding. Unlike the pointed teeth of fish specialists, tiger shark teeth are robust and reinforced, with serrations that allow them to saw through hard materials. This enables them to prey on sea turtles, whose shells require significant force and cutting ability to breach. The same adaptation that allows a tiger shark to dismember a turtle makes even a single bite on a human limb devastating. Bone does not stop the bite. It redirects it, often shattering under torsion. Once contact is made, the shark often releases quickly if the object does not match expected prey cues. This is why many incidents are described as single bites rather than sustained attacks. But release does not mean survival. By the time the jaws open, the injury is already severe. Large sections of muscle may be missing. Arteries may be torn. In shallow water, where medical assistance is minutes rather than seconds away, survival depends on rapid bleeding control and immediate evacuation. Even then, outcomes are uncertain. From an ecological standpoint, tiger sharks play a critical role in regulating coastal ecosystems. They influence the behavior of turtles, dugongs, and other large herbivores, shaping seagrass meadows and reef health. Their presence alters where animals feed and rest, preventing overgrazing and maintaining balance. This role requires them to be mobile, flexible, and willing to exploit a wide range of prey. The very traits that make them ecologically valuable make them dangerous to humans. There is also a seasonal component to tiger shark behavior that intersects with human activity. In many regions, tiger sharks move closer to shore during warmer months, following prey migrations or changes in water temperature. These are the same periods when human coastal activity increases. Beaches become crowded. Fishing intensifies. The overlap is not coincidence. It is convergence driven by shared environmental cues. Thermoregulation contributes as well. Tiger sharks tolerate a wide range of temperatures and can move between deeper, cooler waters and warm shallows with ease. This flexibility allows them to exploit nearshore zones without physiological stress. Humans, by contrast, are often most comfortable in the same warm, shallow waters, increasing the likelihood of interaction. What makes tiger shark encounters particularly unsettling is the absence of intent. There is no pursuit, no escalation, no clear warning. The shark is not defending territory or competing for dominance. It is sampling its environment in the way evolution has taught it to do. The fact that this sampling involves teeth is simply a consequence of living in a world where sight is unreliable and mistakes are costly. In this sense, the tiger shark is one of the most honest predators in the ocean. It does not pretend to be something it is not. It does not specialize narrowly or behave unpredictably within its ecological role. It does exactly what it evolved to do, in exactly the environments where it evolved to do it. The danger arises because humans misunderstand that role, projecting intention and morality onto behavior that is purely functional. Nearshore waters are not neutral ground. They are testing grounds, transition zones where predators gather information and prey take risks. The tiger shark treats this space as a living laboratory, and its teeth are the instruments of measurement. For humans, being measured in this way has irreversible consequences. The phrase test bite sounds mild, almost forgiving. It implies a trial, a chance to retreat. In biological reality, there is nothing mild about it. A test bite from an animal designed to cut through bone and shell is not a warning. It is an outcome. The tiger shark does not need to decide to kill for the result to be fatal. Its biology ensures that the margin for error is effectively non-existent. In the end, the coastline remains what it has always been, a shared boundary, shaped by tides, migration, and hunger. The tiger shark moves through it with ancient purpose, indifferent to human narratives of safety and recreation. It tests because testing is how it survives. And in that testing, the difference between curiosity and catastrophe is measured in fractions of a second and centimeters of tissue, a calculation that leaves little room for survival once teeth make contact. The sand looks smooth, undisturbed, shaped only by gentle currents and retreating waves. In shallow coastal waters, this visual calm encourages a dangerous assumption, that the ground beneath is inert, passive, incapable of responding. But here, beneath a thin veil of sediment, lies an animal that has transformed stillness into a defensive weapon. The stingray does not advertise its presence, it erases it. Flattened against the seabed, eyes protruding just enough to monitor the world above, it becomes a continuation of the sand itself. Only the faintest outline betrays that something alive is embedded there, and even that disappears as grains settle across its back. Stingrays evolved for life on the bottom, where survival depends on avoiding attention rather than asserting dominance. Their bodies are broad and disc-shaped, optimized to hug the substrate and exploit camouflage rather than speed. Pigmentation mirrors the seabed almost perfectly, mottled patterns dissolving into sand, silt, or rubble. Their gills draw water from beneath the body and expel it through openings on top, allowing them to breathe while buried. Every element of their anatomy is designed to minimize movement and visibility. This is not a predator that wants to be seen. It is an animal that survives by convincing the world it is not there. The danger arises not from aggression, but from reflex. Stingrays are not hunters of large animals. They feed on mollusks, crustaceans, and small fish, crushing prey with specialized dental plates rather than tearing flesh. Their venomous spine exists solely as a defensive measure, a last resort deterrent when escape is not possible. And escape is often not possible when the threat comes from directly above. A foot presses down. A body stumbles. A boat hull scrapes shallow ground. In these moments, the stingray does not flee. It reacts. The reaction is fast, involuntary, and precisely targeted. The tail whips upward in a sudden arc, driven by powerful muscles at its base. Embedded near the tail is one or more barbed spines, rigid structures composed of dentin-like material and covered in a sheath of venom-secreting tissue. These spines are not fragile needles. They are serrated, backward-facing weapons designed to penetrate and lodge. When driven upward, they do not merely puncture skin. They tear through it, creating wounds that are deep, irregular, and prone to severe bleeding. What makes the stingray's weapon especially dangerous is not just the venom, but the mechanics of delivery. Unlike animals that inject venom through hollow fangs, the stingray relies on force and positioning. The spine enters the body at whatever angle the strike allows, often driven by the full weight of the person above. This means penetration depth can be extreme. In shallow water, where people often fall forward or backward, the spine can strike far beyond the feet and legs. Thighs, groin, abdomen, and chest are all vulnerable zones. This is where the misconception of stingray injuries becomes lethal. Popular narratives focus on feet and ankles, on painful but manageable wounds. In reality, the danger escalates dramatically when the spine penetrates deeper tissue. A barb that enters the abdomen can damage internal organs. A strike to the chest can puncture lungs or, in rare but documented cases, reach the heart. The spine does not curve away harmlessly. It travels until stopped by bone or internal resistance. And because it is serrated, removal causes additional damage, tearing tissue further as it is withdrawn. The venom compounds this trauma. Stingray venom contains proteins that cause intense pain, muscle spasms, and tissue necrosis. Pain is immediate and severe, often overwhelming, but pain itself is not the primary threat. The venom induces vasodilation, increasing blood flow to the area and exacerbating bleeding. It also triggers inflammatory cascades that cause swelling, which in confined spaces can compromise surrounding structures. When combined with deep puncture wounds, this inflammation can lead to rapid deterioration. In cases where the spine strikes a major blood vessel, hemorrhage can be catastrophic. Unlike clean cuts, stingray wounds are jagged and difficult to compress effectively. Bleeding may continue internally, unseen, even if external flow appears controlled. If an organ is perforated, internal bleeding can progress rapidly, leading to shock. The body responds by increasing heart rate and redistributing blood. But as with other traumatic injuries, this response can worsen the situation by accelerating blood loss. The environment amplifies these risks. Stingray encounters almost always occur in shallow, warm water, where people are far from advanced medical care. Evacuation takes time. Movement worsens bleeding. Panic increases heart rate. Even proper first aid, such as hot water immersion to neutralize venom proteins, addresses only part of the problem. Heat can reduce venom activity, but it does nothing to repair torn tissue or stop internal bleeding. A wound that appears survivable on the surface may be fatal beneath. From an evolutionary perspective, the stingray's spine is a remarkable example of a defensive adaptation shaped by selective pressure from above. Predators that attack from the side or front can often be evaded. Threats from above, however, leave little room for maneuver. The upward strike is the only viable option, and it must be decisive. A predator that learns to avoid stingrays does so because the consequences are immediate and severe. Evolution favored a weapon that could penetrate deeply and deliver enough pain and damage to end the interaction instantly. This design works equally well against humans, not because we are intended targets, but because our bodies share vulnerabilities with the stingray's natural predators. Soft tissue, vital organs, and major blood vessels lie within reach of the spine's trajectory. The stingray does not aim in the human sense. It strikes reflexively, upward, into whatever mass is pressing down. The outcome depends entirely on anatomy and angle. There is a tragic irony in how stingray injuries occur. The animal is not defending territory or competing for resources. It is reacting to an existential threat. Humans are injured not because they are attacked, but because they are unaware. The stingray's camouflage, so effective against predators, is equally effective against people. We step where we should slide. We trust the ground where we should assume it is alive. In ecosystems where stingrays are common, other animals adapt accordingly. Large fish approach cautiously from the side. Sharks flip rays over to neutralize the spine before attacking. These behaviors reflect an understanding of the weapon's danger. Humans lack this inherited knowledge. Our learning comes through experience, and experience in this case is unforgiving. The fatal potential of stingray injuries is often underestimated because deaths are rare relative to encounters. But rarity does not imply safety. It reflects probability, not severity. When the spine strikes a non-critical area, survival is likely. When it strikes the wrong place, outcomes change instantly. A punctured lung can collapse within minutes. A perforated heart leads to rapid cardiac tamponade. Internal bleeding can overwhelm the circulatory system before help arrives. These are not exaggerated scenarios. They are documented realities. Stingrays do not chase, stalk, or hunt humans. They do not seek confrontation. Their danger lies entirely in geometry and reflex. The wrong step, the wrong fall, the wrong angle, and an animal that never intended harm becomes lethal. This makes stingrays uniquely unsettling. There is no escalation, no warning display, no aggressive behavior to retreat from. The injury occurs at the moment of contact, before the brain has time to interpret the situation. Understanding this changes how we see shallow water environments. The seabed is not neutral. It is a living surface, occupied by organisms that have evolved to defend themselves from forces far larger than us. The stingray's spine is not an anomaly. It is a solution, refined over millions of years, to a specific ecological problem. That solution becomes dangerous to humans only because we fail to recognize the problem it was designed to solve. The lesson here is not fear, but respect for hidden complexity. In the ocean, danger is not always moving toward you. Sometimes it is waiting beneath you, perfectly still, relying on your weight to activate its defense. The stingray does not need speed, strength, or aggression. It needs only to be stepped on. And when the spine rises, driven by reflex and force, the line between a painful injury and a fatal one is measured not in intention, but in centimeters of tissue and fractions of a second. The reef glows with color, and among its most striking inhabitants is a fish that looks almost ornamental, as if it were designed to be admired rather than feared. Long, feathery fins radiate outward like a slow-motion explosion, striped in bold contrasts that seem almost artificial against coral and blue water. The lionfish does not hide. It displays. It moves deliberately, unhurried, confident in the knowledge that very little in this environment dares to challenge it. This confidence is not bluff. It is supported by a defensive system that turns beauty into a warning most people fail to recognize until it is too late. Lionfish evolved in the Indo-Pacific, where reef ecosystems are dense, competitive, and unforgiving. Survival there favors animals that can deter predators without constant flight, and the lionfish achieves this through a combination of visual signaling and venom. The extended dorsal, pelvic, and anal spines are not decorative. Each is rigid, sharp, and connected to venom glands at its base. When threatened or mishandled, these spines deliver venom through puncture rather than injection, relying on force and contact rather than active envenomation. This distinction matters because it shapes how and when people are injured. In the water, lionfish appear calm, even indifferent to approaching divers or spearfishers. They do not bolt like many reef fish. They hover, turn slowly, and sometimes even face the perceived threat head-on, spreading their fins wider. To an untrained eye, this looks like curiosity or docility. In reality, it is a defensive posture, maximizing the area covered by venomous spines. Any attempt to grab, corner, or spear the fish risks direct contact with those spines, especially when the animal thrashes reflexively at the last moment. Most lionfish stings do not happen to careless swimmers brushing past reefs. They happen to people who believe they are in control. Divers removing lionfish as part of population control efforts. Spearfishers attempting to dispatch or bag them. Fishermen lifting them from nets or lines. The injury occurs not during the hunt, but during handling, when attention shifts from avoidance to containment. A momentary lapse in positioning, a hand placed too close to the dorsal fin, a fish twisting unexpectedly, and the spines find flesh. The puncture itself is often deceptively small. A single spine enters the skin cleanly, leaving little external damage. But within seconds, pain blooms outward with remarkable intensity. Lionfish venom is a complex mixture of proteins that affect nerve endings and blood vessels, triggering immediate inflammation. The pain is sharp, burning, and persistent, often radiating along the limb rather than remaining localized. Unlike mechanical injuries, this pain does not fade with rest. It intensifies as venom spreads through surrounding tissue. Swelling follows quickly. Blood vessels dilate and fluid floods the area, causing rapid enlargement that can restrict movement and compress nerves. Fingers stiffen, joints lock. In severe cases, the swelling can extend well beyond the original wound, affecting entire hands, arms, or feet. This inflammatory response is not accidental. It is part of the venom's defensive strategy, designed to make the predator or handler release the fish immediately and remember the encounter vividly. While lionfish venom is rarely fatal on its own, secondary complications are where real danger emerges. The puncture wound created by the spine is deep and narrow, an ideal environment for bacteria. Reef environments are rich in microorganisms, many of which are opportunistic pathogens. If the wound is not properly cleaned and monitored, infection can set in quickly. In tropical conditions, this can progress to cellulitis, abscess formation, or even systemic infection. There is also the risk of retained spine fragments. Lionfish spines can break during penetration, leaving pieces embedded in tissue. These fragments continue to release venom and act as foreign bodies, prolonging inflammation and increasing infection risk. Removal often requires medical intervention, especially if fragments lodge near joints or tendons. What began as a single puncture can escalate into a prolonged medical issue requiring antibiotics, surgical cleaning, and weeks of recovery. The pain itself has physiological consequences. Severe pain triggers stress responses that elevate heart rate and blood pressure. In individuals with underlying conditions, this can precipitate complications unrelated to the venom directly. Dizziness, nausea, and fainting are not uncommon, especially when stings occur underwater or far from immediate assistance. Panic worsens outcomes, leading to poor decisions, rapid ascents, or additional injuries. From an ecological perspective, the lionfish's venomous defense supports a lifestyle of boldness. Lionfish are active hunters, using their fins to herd small fish and crustaceans into corners before striking with a rapid suction feeding motion. Their venom allows them to hunt openly during daylight hours without constant fear of predation. This confidence becomes especially problematic in ecosystems where lionfish are invasive, such as the Atlantic and Caribbean, where native species lack evolutionary experience with their defenses. In these invaded systems, lionfish populations can explode, preying heavily on juvenile fish and disrupting reef balance. Humans step in as de facto predators, attempting to control numbers through spearfishing and removal. Ironically, this conservation effort increases the number of human-lionfish interactions, and with it, the number of stings. The fish that evolved to deter predators becomes most dangerous when humans assume that familiarity reduces risk. Handling protocols exist for a reason. Experienced divers use puncture-resistant gloves, specialized containers, and tools that minimize direct contact. But even with precautions, accidents happen. Lionfish spines are long, flexible, and capable of penetrating through thin protective materials. A spine that glances off one surface can deflect into another, catching fingers or wrists unexpectedly. The fish does not need to strike intentionally. Reflexive movement is enough. Hot water immersion is commonly recommended for lionfish stings, as heat can denature venom proteins and reduce pain. This treatment often provides significant relief, but it is not a cure. It does not reverse tissue damage or prevent infection. Pain reduction can create a false sense of resolution, encouraging people to ignore wounds that still require medical attention. Secondary complications often arise days later, when swelling subsides enough to reveal stiffness, numbness, or signs of infection. The irony of the lionfish lies in its appearance. Its beauty invites proximity. Its slow movements suggest safety. Its role in conservation narratives encourages handling. Every one of these factors increases risk. Unlike animals that signal danger through aggression or speed, the lionfish signals danger through elegance, a language humans are poorly equipped to interpret as a warning. In natural reefs where lionfish evolved, predators learned to avoid them through painful trial. Sharks, groupers, and other large fish recognize the silhouette and coloration as something not worth testing. Humans, lacking this evolutionary memory, approach with curiosity rather than caution. We admire first, assess later, and that sequence matters when venom is involved. The lionfish does not chase, ambush, or attack humans. Its venom exists solely to create immediate negative reinforcement. The fact that it works so reliably speaks to its evolutionary success. Pain is not incidental here. It is the message. Rapid swelling, loss of function, and prolonged discomfort ensure that the lesson is remembered. Understanding lionfish injuries requires moving beyond the idea of danger as something dramatic or violent. The risk here is procedural. It arises during routine actions, moments of confidence, and well-intentioned efforts. It is a reminder that even non-aggressive animals can be hazardous when their defenses intersect with human behavior. On the reef, beauty often serves a purpose beyond aesthetics. In the case of the lionfish, it is part of a defensive strategy that trades subtlety for clarity, but only to those who know how to read it. To everyone else, the fish appears inviting, controllable, almost benign. The sting arrives not as punishment, but as correction, a sharp reminder that in the ocean, elegance and danger are often the same thing wearing different masks. In the end, the lionfish embodies a specific kind of threat, one that thrives in close contact with humans precisely because it does not appear threatening. Its venom rarely kills outright, but it can change the course of a dive, a trip, or a life through pain, injury, and complication. It teaches caution not through pursuit or dominance, but through consequence. And it does so beautifully, drifting through reefs with spines extended, a living paradox that turns admiration into injury the moment respect gives way to carelessness. The reef wall looks solid from a distance, a mosaic of coral heads, sponges, and shadows stitched together by time and current. But as you drift closer, the illusion of solidity collapses. The reef is hollow, riddled with tunnels, cracks, and pockets where water slows and light fades. These spaces are not empty. They are occupied by animals that have built their entire survival strategy around confinement. Among them, the moray eel reigns as one of the most misunderstood and consistently underestimated threats in shallow and mid-depth reefs. A moray eel rarely presents its full body. What you see is a head protruding from a crevice, jaws opening and closing rhythmically as water passes over its gills. To inexperienced observers, this looks like aggression, a threat display frozen in place. In reality, it is respiration. Morays lack the ability to pump water over their gills by opening and closing their mouths like most fish. They must gape continuously to breathe. This constant exposure of teeth creates the false impression that the animal is perpetually ready to bite, when in fact, it is simply alive. But this misinterpretation cuts both ways. Because the moray does not lunge or chase, people mistake stillness for safety. The eel remains anchored inside its hole, body coiled deep within the reef, muscles braced against stone. This posture is not passive. It is mechanically advantageous. The eel's elongated body and powerful axial muscles allow it to exert tremendous force in confined spaces. When it bites, it does so from a position of leverage, using the surrounding rock as a brace. The reef itself becomes part of the weapon. Moray eels are ambush predators, feeding primarily on fish, octopus, and crustaceans that pass too close to their lairs. Their sensory world is dominated by smell rather than vision. Olfactory cues guide most hunting decisions, which is why feeding morays by hand is such a dangerous mistake. The eel does not see a human hand as a hand. It registers movement, chemical signals, and proximity. If food has been introduced into this equation before, the eel learns to associate hands with prey. The next time a hand enters the frame, the distinction collapses. The bite itself is only the beginning. Moray eel teeth are long, sharp, and recurved, designed to grip slippery prey and prevent escape. Unlike sharks, which slice and release, morays clamp down and hold. Once a bite occurs, the eel does not shake violently or tear laterally. It locks in place. This is where the second jaw comes into play, a biological feature so unusual it still surprises people who study vertebrate anatomy. Hidden within the throat of the moray eel is a set of pharyngeal jaws, derived from gill arches and modified into a secondary gripping apparatus. When the outer jaws seize prey, these inner jaws launch forward, extending into the mouth to grab the prey and pull it deeper into the throat. This mechanism compensates for the eel's lack of suction feeding, allowing it to swallow prey effectively in confined spaces. In hunting scenarios, this system is elegant and efficient. In defensive bites on humans, it is devastating. Once the pharyngeal jaws engage, release becomes unlikely. The eel is no longer relying solely on bite force at the mouth. It is anchoring internally, pulling inward, while the outer jaws maintain grip. Attempting to pull away increases damage. Teeth puncture deeper. Flesh tears. The eel, sensing resistance, tightens rather than loosens. This is why moray bites often result in deep puncture wounds rather than superficial cuts. The injury is not a snap. It is a lock. The environment magnifies this danger. Moray eels live in holes for a reason. The surrounding rock limits their ability to retreat, but it also limits yours. Hands placed into crevices often cannot be withdrawn quickly. Gloves catch. Knuckles scrape coral. Panic sets in. The eel, feeling pressure and movement inside its refuge, interprets this as a predatory threat. The response is immediate and decisive. There is no warning strike. The bite is the warning. Once skin is broken, a secondary threat emerges that is often more dangerous than the bite itself. Moray eels have a reputation for causing severe infections, and this reputation is well earned. Their mouths harbor dense bacterial communities, adapted to breaking down prey tissue and thriving in warm, nutrient-rich environments. These bacteria are not inherently malicious, but when introduced into human tissue through deep puncture wounds, they can proliferate rapidly. The structure of the wound exacerbates this risk. Moray bites create narrow, deep channels that are difficult to clean thoroughly. Oxygen penetration is limited, creating conditions favorable for anaerobic bacteria. Even with prompt surface cleaning, microbes can remain trapped deep in tissue, where they multiply undisturbed. Infection may not be immediately apparent. Redness, swelling, and pain can develop hours or days later, progressing to abscess formation, cellulitis, or systemic infection if untreated. In some cases, fragments of teeth may break off and remain embedded in the wound. Moray teeth are strong but brittle, and breakage during forceful bites is not uncommon. Retained fragments act as foreign bodies, sustaining inflammation and providing surfaces for bacterial colonization. Surgical removal may be required, particularly if the fragment lodges near tendons, joints, or neurovascular structures. The irony is that many moray bites occur not during reckless behavior, but during curiosity and familiarity. Divers accustomed to seeing morays in the same locations begin to treat them as fixtures rather than animals. Photographers push closer for better angles. Hands reach into holes to steady position or retrieve lost equipment. In regions where morays have been fed intentionally, their behavior shifts subtly. They become more active during daylight hours, emerge further from their lairs, and respond more quickly to movement. These changes increase the likelihood of accidental bites. Feeding morays is particularly dangerous because it disrupts natural behavior patterns. In the wild, morays hunt at night or during low light, responding primarily to scent trails. Hand feeding trains them to associate daytime activity and human presence with food. This conditioning does not make them aggressive, but it does make them reactive. The margin for error shrinks dramatically. A hand that smells faintly of fish, or even of previous feedings, may trigger a feeding response before visual cues can override it. From an ecological standpoint, the moray's bite mechanics are a product of its niche. Living in crevices means prey cannot always be subdued through speed or suction. A grip and hold strategy ensures success. The pharyngeal jaws provide redundancy, preventing prey from escaping even if the initial grip is imperfect. This system works exceptionally well against fish and octopus. Against human hands, it creates injuries that are disproportionate to the size of the animal. Morays are not large predators in the context of reef ecosystems. Many species are modest in length, and even the largest are not apex predators. But size is irrelevant when leverage, anatomy, and environment align. A moray does not need to overpower you in open water. It only needs you to meet it on its terms, inside its territory, where movement is constrained and retreat is slow. The persistence of the bite is what distinguishes morays from many other reef animals. Most defensive bites are brief, designed to startle and disengage. The moray's is adhesive. It holds because holding is how it feeds. Letting go is not part of the reflexive sequence. Release often occurs only when the eel feels secure again, or when external forces intervene. This prolongs contact and increases tissue damage. Understanding moray eel injuries requires abandoning the idea that danger scales with aggression. Morays do not chase swimmers. They do not patrol open water. They do not defend territory in the way sharks or large fish might. Their danger lies in predictability. Hands in holes get bitten. Feeding conditions responses. Resistance worsens injury. These patterns repeat across regions and species because they are rooted in anatomy and ecology, not temperament. The reef teaches lessons quietly, through structure and repetition rather than spectacle. The moray eel is part of that lesson. It occupies negative space, the gaps and shadows that people treat as empty. It responds not to threat displays or dominance, but to intrusion and chemical cues. It bites not to punish, but to secure. The phrase, "the bite that won't let go," is not metaphorical. It describes a mechanical reality shaped by millions of years of evolution. Two sets of jaws, one visible and one hidden, working in sequence to ensure that once contact is made, escape is unlikely. Add to that a bacterial environment primed for infection, and a wound architecture that resists easy treatment, and the result is an injury far more serious than the animal's size suggests. Moray eels are not villains of the reef. They are specialists, exquisitely adapted to a narrow way of life. Problems arise when humans ignore that specialization and insert themselves into spaces not designed for fingers, hands, or curiosity. The reef is not a backdrop. It is an occupied structure, and the holes within it are not empty. When a hand enters one, the moray does not see a person. It sees an object where objects do not belong, and it responds in the only way its biology allows. In the end, moray eel bites are preventable not through bravery or dominance, but through restraint. Keep hands out of holes. Do not feed. Respect the architecture of the reef and the animals that inhabit it. The moray will remain where it has always been, watching from the shadows, jaws opening and closing, not in threat, but in breath, waiting for the world to either pass by or make a mistake it cannot undo. The open water near reefs and drop-offs feels alive with motion. Sunlight fractures into glittering shards as it penetrates the surface, bouncing off scales, bubbles, and drifting particles. Everything here flashes, reflects, and moves. Small fish turn in unison, creating ripples of silver that appear and vanish in an instant. Predators patrol the edges, watching not for shapes, but for disturbances in this constant visual noise. In this environment where speed defines survival, one animal has evolved to treat light itself as a trigger. The barracuda does not hunt bodies. It hunts motion and flash. And when those signals align, the strike arrives so fast that awareness lags behind injury. A barracuda at rest looks almost relaxed, hovering in the water column with minimal effort. Its long torpedo-shaped body is built for efficiency, not constant exertion. Unlike sharks that must swim continuously to ventilate their gills, barracudas can hold position with subtle fin movements, conserving energy while watching everything. Their posture is deceptive. There is no crouch, no tension visible to the human eye. The muscles that power their attack remain quiet until the exact instant they are needed. The barracuda's head tells a different story. The jaws are elongated, tapering to a point that looks more like a weapon than a feeding apparatus. Inside, the teeth are not serrated like a shark's, nor blunt like those of crushing fish. They are long, thin, and razor-sharp, angled backward to prevent escape. These teeth are designed not to saw or crush, but to slice cleanly through flesh with minimal resistance. When the jaws close, there is no grinding or tearing. There is separation. Speed is the barracuda's defining advantage. Its body is reinforced with powerful white muscle fibers capable of explosive contraction. These muscles are not built for endurance. They are built for acceleration. When the barracuda strikes, it does not build speed gradually. It releases stored energy in a sudden burst that propels it forward faster than most fish can react. The distance covered in that burst is short, but the time it takes is even shorter. From initiation to impact, the strike can occur in less time than it takes the human nervous system to register surprise. Reaction time is a biological constraint. Even in ideal conditions, humans require a fraction of a second to perceive a threat and initiate movement. Underwater, where perception is slowed by refraction, and sound behaves unpredictably, that delay increases. The barracuda exploits this gap perfectly. It does not give chase. It does not telegraph its intent. The strike happens entirely within the window where reaction is impossible. What triggers this strike is not size or shape, but contrast and movement. Barracudas are visually oriented predators with keen eyesight, adapted for bright, shallow water. They are drawn to sudden flashes of light that resemble the reflections produced by fleeing fish. A rapid arm movement, a dangling piece of equipment, a shiny watch or jewelry can all mimic these cues. To the barracuda's sensory system, these flashes register not as human, but as prey in distress. This is why many barracuda encounters are described as accidents rather than attacks. The fish does not approach with intent to harm a person. It responds reflexively to a stimulus that matches its hunting template. When that template is satisfied, the body acts before the brain has time to reconsider. The result is a strike that feels sudden, unprovoked, and inexplicable to the victim. The injury itself reflects the barracuda's design. The teeth penetrate deeply and cleanly, often leaving narrow but severe wounds. Unlike crushing bites, these injuries can sever tendons, muscles, and blood vessels with surgical precision. Blood loss can be immediate and significant, especially when major vessels are involved. Because the cut is clean, pain may initially feel less intense than expected, another dangerous mismatch between perception and reality. Adrenaline masks sensation, while bleeding continues unchecked. Barracuda strikes often target moving extremities. Hands, arms, and legs are the most common points of contact, not because the fish aims deliberately, but because these parts move and reflect light most prominently. A quick kick, a sudden turn, a piece of gear catching the sun at the wrong angle, and the stimulus is complete. The fish closes the distance before the movement finishes. From an ecological perspective, this strategy is brutally efficient. Reef environments are crowded and competitive. Prey species survive by detecting predators early and reacting instantly. A predator that can outrun reaction time breaks that system entirely. The barracuda does not need stealth in the traditional sense. It relies on inevitability. Once the signal is detected, the outcome is determined by physics, not decision-making. The barracuda's hunting behavior is also shaped by its position in the food web. It preys on fast, agile fish that cannot be subdued through grappling or prolonged struggle. A failed strike is costly. Prey escapes, and the energy invested is lost. Evolution favors a strike that is decisive enough to end the encounter immediately. The barracuda's speed and teeth deliver exactly that. Humans intersect with this system unintentionally. We bring reflective surfaces into the water. We move erratically. We enter shallow zones where barracudas naturally patrol, often near reefs, drop-offs, and channels where prey congregates. The fish does not distinguish between a flashing lure and a flashing fin. It responds to the signal, not the source. There is also a spatial element to barracuda behavior that increases risk. Barracudas often position themselves above or behind prey, using the sun to obscure their approach. From this angle, flashes are more pronounced, silhouettes are sharper, and escape routes are limited. Swimmers and divers rarely consider this vertical dimension. We scan laterally, not upward. The strike comes from a direction we are not watching. Unlike predators that rely on repeated bites or prolonged engagement, the barracuda's strike is singular. It does not latch on. It does not shake or thrash. It hits and often releases immediately, especially if the object does not behave like prey afterward. But release does not mean safety. The damage is already done. Tendons may be severed, rendering limbs unusable. Bleeding may be severe enough to induce shock. In open water, far from immediate help, these injuries can escalate quickly. Infections are also a concern. Like many marine predators, barracudas carry bacteria in their mouths, adapted to breaking down tissue. Clean-looking cuts can become infected if not treated properly. The narrow nature of the wound can trap bacteria deep inside, where oxygen levels are low and immune response is delayed. What begins as a sharp injury can evolve into a prolonged medical issue if underestimated. The barracuda's reputation as an aggressive fish is misleading. It is not territorial in the way some reef species are. It does not defend nests or chase intruders. Its danger lies entirely in its reflexes. When the wrong signal appears, the response is automatic. There is no evaluation phase where the fish weighs risk or consequence. The nervous system fires, muscles contract, jaws close. By the time cognition catches up, the strike is over. This reflexive nature is what makes barracudas particularly unsettling. There is no warning display, no posturing, no escalation. The encounter goes from neutral to injurious in an instant. Survivors often describe not seeing the fish at all, only feeling the impact and pain afterward. This is not because the barracuda was hidden, but because it moved faster than awareness. In reef ecosystems, other animals adapt to this threat by minimizing flash and erratic movement. Schooling fish coordinate turns to confuse predators. Dull coloration reduces contrast. Humans do the opposite. We wear bright gear. We move independently. We gesture, kick, and reach. Every one of these behaviors increases the likelihood of triggering a barracuda's hunting response. The lesson here is not that barracudas are malevolent or unpredictable. They are consistent. They respond to specific stimuli with remarkable reliability. Understanding this consistency reduces risk. Avoiding shiny objects, minimizing sudden movements, and maintaining awareness of surroundings can lower the chance of an encounter. But once the trigger is pulled, there is no undoing it. The barracuda embodies a particular kind of danger, one rooted not in size or venom, but in timing. Its success comes from operating in the narrow gap between stimulus and reaction, a gap humans cannot close. In that gap, speed becomes fate. The fish does not need strength to overpower. It needs only to arrive first. In the end, the barracuda remains what it has always been, a specialist of light and motion, a predator tuned to exploit the fastest moments in the reef's constant chaos. It is a reminder that in the ocean, danger does not always announce itself with looming shapes or slow approaches. Sometimes it arrives as a flash, a blur, a sudden impact that occurs before the mind can ask what just happened. By the time the question forms, the answer is already written in blood and tissue, delivered by a strike faster than thought itself. The reef floor at first glance appears busy but harmless, a low-rise city of coral rubble, broken shells, and burrows where small animals disappear when shadows pass overhead. Life here feels scaled down. Everything is compact, contained, seemingly manageable. This is where the mind relaxes, assuming that danger comes with size, teeth, or obvious threat displays. But among the crevices and debris lives an animal that violates that assumption completely. The mantis shrimp is small enough to fit in your hand, yet capable of delivering forces that rival industrial machinery. It does not rely on venom, stealth, or mass. It relies on physics so extreme that the water itself becomes part of the weapon. Mantis shrimp are not shrimp at all, but stomatopods, an ancient lineage of crustaceans that diverged early and evolved along a radically different path. Their bodies are compact and armored, segmented into rigid plates that protect vital organs and anchor powerful muscles. They live in burrows carved into coral or sediment, often reinforcing these tunnels with rubble, shells, and debris. These structures are not temporary shelters. They are fortified positions, maintained and defended aggressively. Everything about the mantis shrimp's lifestyle revolves around control of a small space and the ability to dominate it instantly. At the center of this dominance is the raptorial appendage, a modified limb folded beneath the body like a cocked spring. In smashing species, this appendage ends in a club-shaped structure reinforced with layers of mineralized tissue. The club is not just hard, it is engineered. Beneath its surface lies a complex composite of crystalline calcium phosphate, arranged to resist cracking, distribute stress, and absorb repeated impacts. This biological material has inspired research into advanced armor and impact-resistant designs because it solves a problem engineers struggle with: how to strike repeatedly without destroying the weapon itself. The strike begins with muscle, but it does not end there. Inside the mantis shrimp's body, elastic structures store energy slowly, loading tension like a drawn bow. When released, This energy drives the appendage forward at extraordinary speed. The movement happens so fast that the surrounding water cannot move out of the way. Pressure drops abruptly and water vaporizes, forming cavitation bubbles. These bubbles collapse milliseconds later, producing shock waves, light, and additional force independent of the physical impact. In other words, the mantis shrimp hits twice, once with the club and again with the collapsing water. The combined effect is devastating. The initial strike delivers blunt force trauma capable of cracking shells, breaking bones, and shattering aquarium glass. The cavitation shockwave adds heat, pressure, and microjets of water that further damage tissue. This secondary effect means that even if the club does not make direct contact, the shockwave alone can stun or injure prey. In hunting scenarios, this ensures success. In defensive encounters with humans, it means proximity is enough. The physics here are not abstract. Measurements of mantis shrimp strikes have recorded accelerations among the highest known in the animal kingdom. The appendage reaches speeds comparable to a bullet over extremely short distances. Human reflexes are irrelevant at this scale. By the time a hand begins to withdraw, the strike has already landed. There is no warning posture, no escalation. The mantis shrimp does not bluff. It executes. In the wild, this power serves a clear ecological purpose. Mantis shrimp prey on hard-shelled animals like snails, crabs, and bivalves, whose defenses would be impenetrable to most small predators. By breaking shells instead of prying them open, mantis shrimp bypass evolutionary arms races entirely. They do not evolve stronger jaws to match thicker shells. They evolve stronger strikes. This strategy allows them to exploit food sources unavailable to others, reducing competition and securing reliable nutrition. This same strategy is applied to defense. Mantis shrimp are intensely territorial. Their burrows represent significant investment, providing shelter, breeding space, and hunting platforms. When threatened, retreat is not the default response. The mantis shrimp stands its ground, positioning itself at the entrance of its burrow with appendages ready. Many reef fish learn quickly to avoid these confrontations. Sharks, octopus, and even moray eels have been observed backing away from mantis shrimp when strikes are anticipated. Size advantage means nothing when the injury risk is immediate and severe. Humans encounter mantis shrimp most often when they ignore scale and context. A hand reaches into rubble. A diver lifts a rock. A fisher grabs what appears to be a harmless crustacean caught in a net or trap. The mantis shrimp responds as it would to any intrusion into its territory. The strike is delivered not to scare but to disable. Fingers are particularly vulnerable. Bones in the hand are small, thin, and poorly protected. A direct strike can fracture them instantly, sometimes without breaking the skin. This is where the injury becomes especially deceptive. Because mantis shrimp strikes are blunt rather than cutting, external wounds may be minimal. Bruising and swelling appear quickly, but the absence of bleeding can mislead victims into underestimating severity. Beneath the skin, however, damage can be extensive. Bones may be cracked or shattered. Soft tissue is compressed violently, leading to muscle damage and internal bleeding. Nerves can be injured, resulting in numbness, tingling, or long-term loss of function. The cavitation component adds another layer of risk. The collapse of vapor bubbles generates localized heat and pressure spikes. While brief, these effects can damage tissue at a microscopic level, increasing inflammation and complicating healing. The shockwave can also travel through water and soft tissue, meaning that the area affected may extend beyond the point of impact. Pain often intensifies over time rather than peaking immediately, as swelling increases and damaged tissue reacts. Infections are less common than with biting animals, but they remain a concern. Crustaceans inhabit environments rich in bacteria, and their exoskeletons can carry microbes into wounds. A fractured bone combined with contaminated tissue creates ideal conditions for infection, if not properly treated. In remote or tropical settings, delayed medical care increases the risk of complications. The irony of mantis shrimp injuries is how often they involve curiosity rather than recklessness. People are drawn to mantis shrimp because of their reputation for intelligence and extraordinary vision. Their eyes are among the most complex in the animal kingdom, capable of detecting polarized light and a wide range of wavelengths. This sensory sophistication allows them to identify prey, rivals, and intruders with precision. When a human hand enters their environment, the mantis shrimp knows exactly what it is dealing with. The strike is not blind. It is informed. Despite their power, mantis shrimp are not indiscriminate attackers. They do not roam reefs punching everything they encounter. Their aggression is situational, tied to territory and immediate threat. But when the trigger is pulled, the response is absolute. The animal does not modulate force based on opponent size. Evolution has not selected for restraint. It has selected for certainty. In aquarium settings, mantis shrimp have earned a reputation as glass breakers, capable of cracking thick panels with repeated strikes. While dramatic, these incidents underscore a fundamental point. This is not an animal whose power scales linearly with its size. The mantis shrimp concentrates force into a tiny contact area, amplifying impact beyond what intuition suggests. A small mass moving extremely fast can be more destructive than a large mass moving slowly. Physics does not care about appearances. From an ecological standpoint, the mantis shrimp occupies a unique niche. It is both predator and engineer, shaping its environment by breaking shells, rearranging rubble, and maintaining burrows that other species later use. Its presence influences local biodiversity, controlling populations of hard-shelled prey and altering substrate structure. It is not a background character. It is an active force in reef dynamics. Humans entering this system often misread the cues. We associate danger with size and passivity with safety. The mantis shrimp contradicts both assumptions. It is small and proactive, fragile-looking and violently capable. The lesson it offers is uncomfortable because it challenges how we assess risk. Power is not always visible. Threat is not always loud. The phrase, "the punch that breaks bone," is not hyperbole. It is a literal description of a biological mechanism refined over millions of years. A spring-loaded limb, a mineralized club, cavitation physics, and territorial behavior combine into a weapon that does not need teeth or venom to cause serious injury. All it needs is proximity and misunderstanding. In the end, the mantis shrimp is not dangerous because it is aggressive, but because it is optimized. It lives in a world of hard surfaces and confined spaces, where hesitation is punished and decisiveness ensures survival. When humans intrude into that world without recognizing its rules, the consequences are immediate and physical. A small animal delivers a big injury, not out of malice, but because that is the only language its evolution has taught it to speak. The reef is full of such contradictions, places where beauty hides force and small forms wield outsized power. The mantis shrimp stands as one of the clearest examples, a reminder that in the ocean, scale is deceptive and danger is often measured not in size but in speed, structure, and the unforgiving precision of natural design. The reef feels calm, almost playful, when a pufferfish drifts into view. Its movement is unhurried, its body rounded and compact, fins fluttering like small flags in a gentle current. There is nothing predatory in its posture, nothing that suggests urgency or threat. Among the sharp lines of coral, the spines of urchins, and the wary eyes of larger fish, the puffer looks almost comical, an animal shaped more like an accident than a weapon. This appearance is not a coincidence. It is camouflage of a different kind, one designed not to hide danger, but to invite underestimation. Pufferfish occupy a strange ecological niche. They are not fast swimmers. They do not hunt aggressively. They do not chase or ambush. Instead, they rely on one of the most potent biochemical defenses ever evolved by a vertebrate. Their power lies not in teeth, claws, or speed, but in a molecule so efficient that a quantity smaller than a grain of sand can end human life by shutting down the most fundamental function of the body, breathing. Tetrodotoxin is the centerpiece of this defense. It is not produced by the pufferfish itself in the way venom is produced by snakes or jellyfish. Instead, it originates from symbiotic bacteria, acquired through the puffer's diet and accumulated in its tissues over time. This toxin concentrates in specific organs, particularly the liver, ovaries, skin, and sometimes muscle. The pufferfish becomes not just toxic, but strategically toxic, its most vulnerable or most likely to be handled parts turning into reservoirs of chemical deterrents. From an evolutionary standpoint, this arrangement is brutally effective. Predators that bite a pufferfish do not need to die to learn the lesson. Severe illness, paralysis, or near death is enough to ensure avoidance in the future. The toxin does not need to be injected. It only needs to be ingested or absorbed through mucous membranes or broken skin. This means that even curious sampling is punished. There is no safe test bite. Tetrodotoxin works by interfering with voltage-gated sodium channels in nerve and muscle cells. These channels are essential for generating and propagating electrical signals. When they are blocked, nerves cannot fire, muscles cannot contract, and communication between the brain and the body collapses. Importantly, the brain itself often remains fully conscious. Sensory perception can persist. Thought continues. Awareness remains intact. What disappears is control. This is where the terror lies. Victims of tetrodotoxin poisoning often experience a progression that feels unreal. Initial symptoms can be mild, tingling around the lips, fingers, or tongue, a numbness that might be dismissed as irritation or anxiety. As the toxin spreads, muscle weakness sets in. Speech becomes slurred. Coordination fails. Eventually, voluntary movement stops altogether. The diaphragm, the muscle responsible for breathing, becomes paralyzed. The body knows it needs to breathe. The lungs are functional. Oxygen is available. But the signal never reaches the muscle. This state, sometimes described as locked-in paralysis, is among the most frightening physiological experiences possible. The person is awake. They can hear. They can think. They may feel their chest rising and falling more shallowly with each passing moment. Panic accelerates heart rate, but it does not restore function. Without mechanical ventilation, suffocation follows, not because air is absent, but because the body has been chemically disconnected from its own machinery. In the wild, this mechanism protects the pufferfish at every stage of interaction. Predators that attempt to swallow a puffer are often forced to spit it out when inflation occurs, but inflation alone is not the real defense. It is a delay tactic. While the predator struggles with a suddenly rigid, spiny object in its mouth, toxin exposure begins. Even brief contact with the skin or internal tissues can be enough to induce illness. The predator learns, quickly and memorably, that this prey is not worth the cost. Humans encounter this toxin in two primary ways: handling and consumption. Both involve misunderstanding the nature of the threat. Handling pufferfish is often motivated by curiosity. The fish appears harmless. It does not bite aggressively. When stressed, it inflates, becoming rounder, more awkward, even endearing to some observers. This response encourages people to touch, lift, or pose the fish for photographs. In doing so, they expose themselves to toxin present in the skin and mucus. Small abrasions, cuts, or contact with sensitive tissues such as eyes or mouth can allow tetrodotoxin to enter the body. Even without visible injury, prolonged handling increases risk. In some cases, toxin exposure occurs when pufferfish are caught accidentally in nets or lines. Fishermen attempt to remove hooks or disentangle the fish, unaware of the danger. Gloves may provide limited protection, but spines and teeth can puncture fabric, and toxin-laden fluids can contaminate wounds. The absence of immediate pain reinforces the illusion of safety. Symptoms may not appear until hours later, when the opportunity for early intervention has passed. Consumption presents an even greater risk. In certain cultures, pufferfish is considered a delicacy, prepared by highly trained specialists who remove toxic organs with extreme precision. This practice exists because the toxin does not break down with cooking. Heat does nothing to neutralize tetrodotoxin. A single mistake in preparation can leave enough toxin in the flesh to cause severe poisoning or death. The danger here is not exaggerated folklore, it is biochemical reality. Tetrodotoxin is lethal at extraordinarily low doses. There is no antidote. Treatment consists entirely of supportive care, maintaining breathing and circulation while the body slowly clears the toxin. This can take days. Survival depends on rapid access to advanced medical facilities capable of mechanical ventilation. In many parts of the world, that access does not exist. What makes pufferfish poisoning especially insidious is how it mimics other conditions in its early stages. Tingling, weakness, nausea, and dizziness can be mistaken for food poisoning, allergic reactions, or anxiety. Victims may delay seeking help, believing the symptoms will pass. By the time paralysis becomes obvious, respiratory failure may be imminent. At that point, the margin for survival narrows dramatically. From an ecological perspective, the pufferfish's toxin shapes interactions across the reef. Predators avoid them. Smaller fish give them space. Even parasites are affected by the chemical environment of their skin. This allows puffers to forage openly, feeding on algae, invertebrates, and small organisms without constant vigilance. Their slow movement is not a liability when few things dare to bite them. Inflation adds another layer to this defense. When threatened, the puffer rapidly ingests water, expanding its body into a rigid sphere. Spines that lie flat under normal conditions stand erect, making the fish difficult or impossible to swallow. This physical transformation buys time, but it also increases surface area, exposing more toxin-rich tissue. Any predator that maintains contact during this phase absorbs more toxin. The longer the interaction, the worse the outcome. Humans often misunderstand inflation as the primary danger, assuming the fish might burst or cause injury through physical means. In reality, inflation is a warning, not the weapon. The toxin is the real deterrent, silent and invisible, working long after the fish has been released or handled. The irony of pufferfish danger is how indirect it feels. There is no bite, no sting, no immediate violence. The injury unfolds internally, quietly, as nerve signals fail one by one. This disconnect between cause and effect makes the experience especially terrifying. People know they are in trouble, but they cannot point to a dramatic moment when it began. There is no obvious wound to explain the severity of the situation. In some rare cases, individuals have survived tetrodotoxin poisoning while remaining conscious throughout the entire episode, unable to move or speak, relying on others to recognize their condition and provide ventilation. These cases highlight the cruel efficiency of the toxin. It does not attack the mind. It attacks control. It leaves awareness intact while stripping away agency. From an evolutionary lens, this is a near-perfect defense. Killing predators outright is unnecessary. Teaching them to avoid you is enough. Tetrodotoxin achieves this with minimal cost to the pufferfish. It does not need to chase, fight, or flee. It simply exists as something that cannot be safely eaten. Humans, however, complicate this equation. We override natural avoidance behaviors with curiosity, tradition, and confidence. We touch what should not be touched. We eat what evolution clearly labeled as dangerous. In doing so, we step outside the learning curve that governs predator-prey relationships and expose ourselves to consequences we are poorly adapted to survive. The pufferfish is not malicious. It does not target humans. It does not inject toxin intentionally. Its danger lies entirely in chemistry and proximity. But chemistry does not negotiate. Once tetrodotoxin enters the body, intention becomes irrelevant. The process follows its course, indifferent to regret or realization. In the quiet aftermath of a pufferfish encounter, as muscles weaken and movement fades, the lesson becomes starkly clear. Danger does not always look dangerous. Some of the most lethal adaptations in the ocean are wrapped in softness, roundness, and apparent harmlessness. The pufferfish embodies this contradiction completely. A small, gentle-looking animal carrying a toxin capable of shutting down the body, while the mind remains awake to experience every moment of its failure. The reef continues on around it, currents flowing, fish schooling, predators hunting, balance maintained. The puffer drifts back into its place among coral and sand, unchanged by the encounter. The system works as designed. It is only when humans forget that they are visitors, not participants in this evolutionary logic, that the cost becomes fatal. The reef changes character when an octopus is present, Though the change is subtle enough that most observers never register it, colors seem to rearrange themselves. Textures shift. What looked like an empty patch of rock moments ago now appears slightly darker, slightly rougher, slightly more intentional. The octopus does not enter the scene so much as emerge from it, unfolding from camouflage that is less disguise than transformation. It is not hiding behind the reef. It is temporarily becoming the reef, and that distinction matters because it reflects a mind that treats environment as a tool rather than a backdrop. Octopuses are predators built around intelligence rather than speed or brute force. Their bodies are soft, flexible, and vulnerable in ways that would doom less adaptable animals. They lack protective shells. They do not possess sharp spines or heavy armor. Their survival depends on control, problem-solving, and precision, qualities expressed not only in how they hunt, but in how they defend themselves when confronted by something too large or unpredictable to treat as prey. The arms are the first thing people notice, and for good reason. Each arm is lined with rows of suction cups, each capable of independent movement and adhesion. These suckers are not simple suction devices. They combine mechanical suction with chemical adhesion, allowing them to grip wet, irregular surfaces with remarkable strength. This grip is controlled locally. Each arm contains a dense network of neurons, capable of processing sensory information and executing movements without direct input from the central brain. In effect, the octopus distributes its intelligence throughout its body. This distributed control makes physical interaction with an octopus far more complex than it appears. A single arm can explore, grip, pull, and adjust pressure dynamically, responding to resistance in real time. When multiple arms engage simultaneously, the combined force can be substantial. An octopus does not need to overpower a threat. It needs only to anchor itself and apply leverage. In water, where buoyancy reduces body weight but not grip strength, this leverage can immobilize objects far larger than the octopus itself. People who underestimate this ability often do so because the octopus does not appear aggressive. It does not charge or posture. It reaches. It tests. An arm extends, attaches briefly, releases, then attaches again somewhere else. This exploratory behavior is part of how octopuses understand their environment. They taste through their suckers. They feel texture, pressure, and chemical cues simultaneously. To an octopus, touching is not a prelude to attack. It is how information is gathered. Problems arise when this exploratory behavior is misread as harmless curiosity. Hands are extended. Arms are allowed to wrap. Photos are taken. The octopus responds as it would to any unfamiliar, potentially threatening object entering its immediate space. It tightens its grip, not in panic, but in assessment. And once that grip is established, disengagement becomes difficult. The strength of octopus suction is not constant. It scales with need. Gentle contact involves minimal pressure. Resistance triggers escalation. Each sucker can generate significant pulling force, and when dozens engage simultaneously, the effect is cumulative. Removing an octopus by force often leads to stronger attachment, not release. The animal interprets pulling as threat, responding by anchoring more firmly. This grip becomes dangerous not because it crushes or cuts, but because it brings the beak into play. Hidden at the center of the arms is the octopus's beak, a rigid parrot-like structure composed of chitin. It is the only hard part of the octopus's body, and it exists for one purpose: penetrating prey. Fish, crustaceans, and mollusks are subdued by the beak, which can puncture shells and exoskeletons with ease. On humans, the beak presents a different risk. Octopus bites are rare, but when they occur, they are precise. The beak does not tear or chew. It punctures. The wound may appear small, almost insignificant, but the danger lies not in mechanical damage, but in what accompanies it. Many octopus species possess venom delivered through saliva introduced during the bite. This venom serves multiple purposes. In hunting, it immobilizes prey, relaxing muscles and preventing escape. In defense, it discourages further interaction. The composition of octopus venom varies by species, but it commonly includes neurotoxins and enzymes that disrupt normal cellular function. In most species, the venom is mild, causing localized pain, swelling, or numbness. But there are exceptions, and those exceptions redefine the risk entirely. Some octopus species produce toxins potent enough to constitute medical emergencies. The most well-known example is the blue-ringed octopus, a small, visually striking animal whose vivid coloration serves as a warning. When threatened, it displays bright blue rings that pulse against its skin, a rare instance of honest signaling in an otherwise cryptic lineage. These rings announce the presence of tetrodotoxin, the same compound found in pufferfish, concentrated in the octopus's salivary glands. Tetrodotoxin is not a venom in the traditional sense. It does not cause pain or tissue damage at the site of the bite. Instead, it blocks nerve signaling by inhibiting sodium channels, leading to paralysis. The bite itself may be painless or barely noticeable. There may be no swelling, no redness, no immediate distress. This lack of sensory feedback is what makes the toxin so dangerous. Victims may not realize they have been bitten until symptoms appear. Those symptoms progress quickly: tingling in the lips or fingers, weakness, difficulty speaking or swallowing, loss of voluntary muscle control. Consciousness often remains intact, even as the body becomes unable to move or breathe. Without immediate respiratory support, suffocation can occur. There is no antidote. Survival depends entirely on rapid access to advanced medical care and mechanical ventilation. It is important to emphasize that not all octopuses carry such extreme toxins. The vast majority pose little to no systemic risk. But the problem for humans lies in identification and assumption. Many species look similar. Coloration can change rapidly. A calm octopus may appear unremarkable until stressed, at which point warning displays emerge. Handling or provoking an octopus removes the margin for error that makes safe coexistence possible. Beyond venom, the octopus's intelligence introduces another layer of unpredictability. Octopuses learn. They remember. They recognize patterns and individuals. In areas where they are frequently disturbed or handled, their behavior changes. They become more defensive, quicker to engage, less tolerant of intrusion. This is not aggression in the emotional sense. It is adaptation. Octopuses are also escape artists, capable of squeezing through openings smaller than their beak. This ability reinforces their preference for confined spaces, dens and crevices, where they control access. Hands entering these spaces violate that control. The octopus responds by asserting dominance over its immediate environment, using grip and beak to resolve the intrusion. From an ecological perspective, this behavior makes sense. Octopuses are both predators and prey. They must defend themselves against fish, eels, and marine mammals while hunting efficiently. Intelligence allows them to assess threats and choose appropriate responses. Venom and grip are part of that toolkit, deployed selectively based on context. Humans often misinterpret this selectivity as docility. An octopus that does not immediately flee is assumed to be tolerant. In reality, it is evaluating. It is deciding whether camouflage, retreat, grip, or bite is the most effective response. Once that decision is made, it is executed with precision. The risks associated with octopus encounters are therefore situational rather than universal. Watching an octopus from a respectful distance is generally safe. Provoking one, cornering it, or attempting to handle it introduces variables that shift the balance rapidly. Strong grip limits escape. A beak bite introduces venom. Species-specific toxins determine severity. Intelligence ensures that the response is targeted rather than random. There is an irony here that deserves acknowledgement. Octopuses are among the most cognitively complex animals in the ocean, capable of problem-solving, play-like behavior, and even tool use. These qualities endear them to humans, encouraging interaction. But intelligence does not equate to friendliness. It equates to effective decision-making. When an octopus decides that a situation requires force, it applies it with unsettling efficiency. In reef ecosystems, octopuses influence far more than their size suggests. They regulate populations of crustaceans and mollusks, shape habitat structure through den building, and even affect nutrient cycles by transporting shells and debris. Their presence alters the behavior of other animals, creating zones of avoidance and opportunity. They are architects as much as hunters. Understanding octopus risk requires shifting perspective. This is not a passive, delicate creature at the mercy of its environment. It is an active agent, equipped with tools that reflect a long evolutionary history of conflict and problem-solving. Grip replaces claws. Venom replaces fangs. Intelligence replaces brute force. The phrase smart predator with venom and grip is not a metaphor. It is a literal description of a biological strategy that has proven extraordinarily successful. For humans, the danger lies not in malice, but in mismatch. We bring assumptions shaped by terrestrial animals into a marine context where those assumptions fail. We expect soft-bodied animals to be fragile. We expect small animals to be harmless. We expect intelligence to manifest as caution or retreat. The octopus violates all of these expectations. It is soft but powerful, small but capable of decisive injury, intelligent in ways that prioritize outcome over display. When it bites, it does so deliberately. When it grips, it commits. And when venom is involved, the consequences extend far beyond the initial contact. In the end, octopuses do not need to threaten humans to be dangerous. They simply need to be treated as curiosities rather than predators. Respectful distance preserves safety on both sides. Intrusion invites a response shaped by millions of years of evolution, one that does not care about intention or admiration. The reef remains a place of extraordinary beauty and complexity, populated by animals that solve survival in ways both subtle and extreme. The octopus stands among the most impressive of these solutions, a reminder that intelligence is not always gentle, and that some of the ocean's most formidable defenses come wrapped in silence, softness, and a mind sharp enough to know exactly when to use them. The ocean feels different when orcas are nearby, even before they are seen. Other animals know first. Seabirds lift and scatter. Seals abandon haul-out rocks without obvious cause. Fish schools compress and dive, their movements suddenly tighter, more urgent. The water itself seems to empty, as though life has decided collectively to step aside. Orcas do not need stealth in the conventional sense. Their presence alone reorganizes the ecosystem around them. They are not merely predators moving through the sea. They are events. Orcas are built on a foundation of excess. Excess intelligence, excess strength, excess coordination. They are not specialized for a single prey type or hunting strategy. Instead, they possess the rarest and most dangerous trait an apex predator can have: behavioral flexibility. An orca does not rely on one way to kill. It learns new ones. It teaches them. It refines them. This ability, more than size or speed, is what places orcas at the absolute top of the marine hierarchy. Physically, an orca is already overwhelming. Its body is massive, dense with muscle, optimized for power rather than efficiency. The tail flukes alone can generate forces capable of launching prey clear of the water or stunning animals many times smaller with a single strike. The jaws are lined with large conical teeth, designed not for slicing, but for gripping and crushing. Bite force is immense, but bite force is almost incidental here. Orcas do not need to rely on teeth to kill. They use the entire ocean as a weapon. One of the most well-documented demonstrations of this dominance is wave washing. In polar regions, seals rest on floating ice floes, relying on isolation and elevation for safety. Against most predators, this strategy works. Orcas dismantle it methodically. A pod will line up, swimming in precise formation, timing their movements with near-perfect synchronization. Then, with a coordinated surge, they generate a wave large enough to swamp the ice. The flow tilts, water rushes over its surface, and the seal is swept into the sea. The orcas do not rush in chaotically. They wait. They know gravity and momentum will do the work for them. Once the seal is in the water, the outcome is no longer in question. This behavior is not instinctive in the simple sense. It is learned, practiced, and culturally transmitted. Different orca populations around the world use different hunting techniques, refined for their local environments and prey. Some pods never wave wash because their prey does not require it. Others have perfected the method to such a degree that it looks rehearsed, a choreographed performance passed down through generations. This cultural learning is unprecedented among marine predators and places orcas in a category closer to humans than to sharks or whales. Ramming is another tool in the orca arsenal, used against prey too large or too dangerous to subdue through biting alone. Orcas have been observed ramming sharks, rays, and even whales with calculated force, targeting areas that disrupt movement or consciousness. A well-placed impact can break ribs, damage internal organs, or induce shock. Against sharks, ramming often precedes flipping the animal upside down, inducing tonic immobility. Once immobilized, the shark is effectively neutralized. Its defenses become irrelevant. This is where the myth of invincibility among other apex predators collapses. Great white sharks, long considered rulers of the ocean, alter their behavior dramatically in the presence of orcas. Tracking data shows sharks abandoning entire hunting grounds for extended periods after orca encounters. In some cases, orcas selectively target shark livers, a nutrient-rich organ, demonstrating anatomical knowledge and precision that borders on surgical. The shark is not fought, it is dismantled. Coordinated hits take this dominance even further. Orcas hunt as units, not individuals. Each member of the pod has a role, and those roles can change depending on context. Some drive prey, others block escape routes, others deliver disabling blows. Communication is constant, but often subtle, relying on body positioning, speed changes, and minimal vocalization when silence is required. The result is a level of tactical control unmatched in the ocean. Against large whales, this coordination becomes truly staggering. Orcas have been documented harassing, exhausting, and eventually killing whales far larger than themselves. They target calves first, separating them from protective adults. They ram flanks, bite fins, and interfere with breathing. The goal is not to overpower instantly, but to degrade the prey's ability to function. Exhaustion sets in. Panic increases oxygen demand. Injuries accumulate. Eventually, the whale can no longer surface effectively to breathe. Drowning follows, not because the whale is weak, but because it has been systematically denied its primary advantage. What makes these encounters especially unsettling is their deliberateness. Orcas do not frenzy. They do not rush. They assess. They adapt. If one tactic fails, another is attempted. If resistance increases, pressure is adjusted. This is not blind aggression. It is problem-solving under pressure, executed with lethal competence. From a physiological perspective, orcas are uniquely suited to sustain this level of activity. They are endothermic, maintaining body temperatures that support high muscle performance even in cold water. Their cardiovascular systems deliver oxygen efficiently during prolonged exertion. Their lungs exchange gases rapidly during brief surface intervals. Every system supports endurance and power simultaneously, a combination rare even among large mammals. Sensory capabilities add another layer to this dominance. Orcas use echolocation with extraordinary precision, mapping environments and prey in 3 dimensions. They can detect the size, shape, movement, and even internal structure of objects using sound alone. In murky water or complete darkness, this sense replaces vision entirely. There is no hiding from an orca that is actively searching. Physical concealment becomes irrelevant. This sensory advantage extends to coordination. Pods can hunt silently when necessary, relying on passive listening rather than active echolocation to avoid alerting prey. When sound is used, it is controlled, targeted, and purposeful. Communication within the pod is equally sophisticated, with vocal dialects unique to specific groups. These dialects reinforce social bonds and cultural continuity, ensuring that knowledge is preserved and refined rather than lost. The question that inevitably arises is whether orcas pose a threat to humans. In the wild, documented attacks on humans are extraordinarily rare. This absence is often misinterpreted as evidence of restraint or benevolence. In reality, it reflects something more unsettling. choice. Orcas do not attack humans because they do not need to, and because humans do not fit their prey templates. But this lack of predation should not be mistaken for inability. If an orca wanted to harm a human, there is nothing in the marine environment that could stop it. A human in the water is fragile, slow and poorly equipped to resist even minimal force from an animal of this size and intelligence. A single ram could break bones. A tail slap could induce unconsciousness. Drowning would be inevitable. The fact that this does not happen is not due to limitation, but to behavioral preference. This distinction matters because it underscores the true position of orcas in the ocean. They are not just apex predators in the sense of being at the top of a food chain. They are apex decision makers. They choose how and when to apply force and against whom. Other predators operate within narrower behavioral constraints. Orcas operate with options. Ecologically, this power has cascading effects. Orcas shape the distribution and behavior of prey species across entire regions. Their presence can alter migration routes, feeding grounds, and breeding behaviors. In some ecosystems, the arrival or departure of orcas triggers shifts that ripple through multiple trophic levels. Seals change haul-out patterns. Fish populations redistribute. Even nutrient cycles are affected as predation pressure changes. These effects are not accidental. They are the result of a predator that understands its environment deeply enough to exploit it without over-exploiting it. Orcas do not wipe out prey populations indiscriminately. They manage them through pressure and presence, maintaining balance in ways that are still being studied and debated. There is an irony in how humans perceive this dominance. We often fear sharks because they appear alien and unpredictable. Orcas, with their familiar mammalian features and apparent intelligence, inspire fascination and affection. But intelligence does not make an animal less dangerous. It makes it more capable of choosing when danger is necessary. The restraint shown by wild orcas toward humans is a testament not to harmlessness, but to discernment. In captivity, where social structures are disrupted and stress alters behavior, incidents have occurred that reveal the underlying power these animals possess. These incidents are not aberrations. They are reminders of what happens when an apex predator is removed from the ecological and social context that guides its behavior. In the open ocean, those contexts remain intact. Orcas hunt what they know, using methods refined over generations. They do not experiment casually with unknown prey. This conservatism, combined with intelligence, keeps humans largely outside their threat envelope. But the envelope exists nonetheless. When orcas hunt, they do so with an efficiency that borders on inevitability. There is no safe size, no reliable defense, no environment that guarantees escape. Ice is overturned. Depth is exploited. Speed is matched. Strength is outmaneuvered. Intelligence is countered with greater intelligence. The sea offers no refuge from an animal that can use every dimension of it simultaneously. To say that orcas are the apex predators of the ocean is accurate but incomplete. They are the final authority. They do not merely participate in the marine ecosystem. They regulate it. Their presence defines the limits within which other animals operate. If an orca wanted to end anything in the sea, it could. That it usually chooses not to speaks volumes about its role, but it does not diminish its capability. The ocean remains vast, complex, and dangerous, not because it is chaotic, but because it is governed by forces that understand it completely. In the quiet moments after an orcapod passes through, the reef and open water slowly repopulate. Fish return. Seals surface cautiously. Life resumes, but altered, aware that something capable of ending everything chose, for now, to move on. That awareness is the true mark of an apex predator. Not the bodies it leaves behind, but the behavior it shapes simply by existing. The surface ocean lies to the sperm whale the way air lies to a human diver. Necessary, but not where life truly happens. Sunlight, waves, and weather form only a thin skin over a far more hostile and consequential world below. For the sperm whale, survival is written not in the brightness of the upper sea, but in the crushing darkness thousands of meters beneath it, a realm where pressure can pulverize unprotected tissue, where light is absent, and where encounters are violent, sudden, and unforgiving. This is not a place adapted for safety. It is a place that kills anything not specifically built to exist within it. The deep ocean is not merely dark, it is actively destructive. Pressure increases relentlessly with depth, compressing gas-filled spaces, distorting soft tissue, and turning minor structural weaknesses into catastrophic failures. At depths routinely visited by sperm whales, pressure is measured not in discomfort, but in tons per square meter. Any organism that carries air, relies on rigid cavities, or lacks reinforced cellular architecture would be crushed into dysfunction almost instantly. That sperm whales descend into this environment repeatedly, daily, and return alive is not an accident of size, but the result of extreme physiological specialization. Sperm whales do not dive casually. Their bodies are engineered to tolerate conditions that approach the limits of mammalian endurance. Before a deep dive begins, the whale initiates a sequence of internal changes. Heart rate slows dramatically, conserving oxygen. Blood flow is rerouted away from peripheral tissues and toward the brain and heart. The lungs collapse safely, preventing nitrogen absorption that would otherwise cause fatal embolisms during ascent. Oxygen is stored not primarily in the lungs, but in muscle tissue, bound to myoglobin in concentrations far higher than in terrestrial mammals. These adaptations allow sperm whales to remain submerged for extraordinary durations, descending into zones where the water temperature hovers near freezing and where darkness is absolute. In this environment, vision is nearly useless. Sound becomes the dominant sense, and sperm whales wield it with unmatched intensity. Their echolocation clicks are among the loudest biological sounds produced by any animal, powerful enough to travel vast distances and return detailed information about prey, terrain, and movement in the void. But sound in the deep ocean is not a gentle probe. It is a weaponized sense, capable of stunning prey and disorienting organisms adapted to quieter depths. For the sperm whale, echolocation is not only how it finds food, it is how it survives spatially, in an environment with no visual reference points. A missed ascent path, a disorientation episode, or a miscalculated oxygen budget would mean death, not by predation, but by the environment itself. This is the lethal backdrop against which one of the ocean's most violent predator-prey interactions unfolds: the battle between sperm whales and giant squid. These encounters do not resemble hunts in shallow water. There is no chase across open space, no gradual wearing down of prey. Instead, there is collision, entanglement, and brute force applied in darkness so complete that neither participant sees the other until contact is made. Giant squid are not passive prey. They are muscular, aggressive, and equipped with long tentacles lined with powerful suckers ringed by sharp chitinous hooks. These hooks can embed deeply into flesh, anchoring the squid to its attacker. Evidence of these battles is written permanently into the bodies of sperm whales. Circular scars, some as wide as dinner plates, mark their heads and flanks, each one the record of a violent struggle in the deep. When a sperm whale locates a squid, the encounter escalates instantly. The whale lunges forward, jaws opening to engulf the prey. The squid responds by wrapping its tentacles around the whale's head and face, anchoring itself with hooks, and attempting to maintain distance from the crushing jaws. In the confined, pressurized darkness, there is no room for maneuver. The struggle becomes a test of endurance and force. Pressure compounds the danger. Muscles must contract against resistance far greater than at the surface. Blood vessels are compressed. Nerves function at the edge of their tolerance. Any injury sustained in this environment is magnified by the difficulty of repair and the impossibility of immediate retreat. The whale cannot simply flee upward without managing decompression and oxygen debt. The fight must be finished where it begins. The sperm whale's advantage lies in its mass and its jaws. The lower jaw, long and narrow, is lined with large conical teeth, designed to grip and hold rather than slice. Once the whale secures a portion of the squid, it pulls relentlessly, drawing the prey into its mouth, where it can be crushed and swallowed. The squid's defense is not escape, but damage. Hooks tear into skin, tentacles constrict. The whale absorbs this punishment, trading injury for sustenance. This exchange highlights a critical truth about the deep ocean. Survival often means enduring damage rather than avoiding it. Scars are not failures. They are evidence of survival in an environment where contact with lethal forces is routine. The sperm whale's skin is thick, resilient, and capable of healing wounds that would incapacitate smaller animals. Its nervous system tolerates trauma. Its immune system operates under conditions that would overwhelm most mammals. But the deep ocean is not dangerous only because of its inhabitants. It is dangerous because it offers no margin for error. Navigation relies entirely on internal systems and sensory interpretation. A malfunction in echolocation, a misjudgment of depth, or a failure in oxygen management can be fatal without any predator involvement. Unlike surface waters, where an injured animal might rest or recover, the deep sea demands continuous function. There is no pause button. Temperature adds another layer of lethality. Cold water accelerates heat loss, threatening hypothermia in animals not adapted for it. Sperm whales counter this with thick blubber and controlled circulation, maintaining core temperature even as extremities cool. This thermal regulation is not about comfort. It is about preserving muscle function and neural transmission under conditions that would otherwise shut them down. Even ascent carries risk. Returning to the surface too quickly could cause decompression sickness if nitrogen bubbles form in tissues. Returning too slowly risks oxygen depletion. The sperm whale must execute its ascent with precision, balancing internal pressures while fatigued from exertion. This is physiology operating at the edge of possibility, repeated day after day, year after year. The environment the sperm whale inhabits is thus lethal, not because it is chaotic, but because it is unforgiving. Everything is governed by physical laws that cannot be negotiated. Pressure does not relent, darkness does not lift, oxygen does not replenish itself. The whale survives by meeting these conditions head-on, with adaptations that align perfectly with the demands of the deep. In this context, the battles with giant squid are not extraordinary events. They are routine hazards layered onto an already hostile existence. The whale does not hunt squid for sport or dominance. It hunts because this is where food exists in sufficient quantity. The deep scattering layer, composed of squid and fish migrating vertically each day, is the pantry of the deep. Accessing it requires paying the price of depth. There is no spectacle here, no audience, no dramatic flourish. These encounters occur in silence and darkness, witnessed by no one. Their evidence surfaces only in scars and stomach contents, in the absence of squid where whales have passed. The deep ocean erases its own violence quickly, leaving little record beyond the bodies of those strong enough to endure it. The sperm whale's dominance, therefore, is not rooted in terror or aggression, but in tolerance. It can tolerate pressure that would collapse other mammals. It can tolerate darkness that would disorient most predators. It can tolerate injuries inflicted by prey that would kill others outright. It is not invulnerable, but it is resilient in a way few animals ever need to be. This resilience shapes the ecosystem. By preying on giant squid, sperm whales influence populations that would otherwise dominate the deep. Their movements redistribute nutrients vertically, carrying energy from the abyss to the surface through waste and decomposition. Their dives link ecological zones that would otherwise remain isolated. In this sense, sperm whales are not just predators, they are conduits between worlds. The deep zone they inhabit does not forgive curiosity, weakness, or error. It does not allow experimentation. It demands exactness. The sperm whale answers that demand not with speed or stealth, but with endurance, mass, and biological engineering refined over millions of years. Every dive is a calculated risk. Every scar is a receipt. The violence of this world is not dramatic in the way surface predation can be. It is methodical, relentless, and indifferent. The ocean does not care whether an animal is powerful or intelligent. It cares whether that animal is built correctly. The sperm whale is, and that is why it returns from depths that would kill almost anything else. In the end, the sperm whale's story is not one of conquest, but of survival in a place designed to destroy the unprepared. Pressure, darkness, cold and violent prey form a gauntlet through which only the most specialized can pass. That the sperm whale navigates this gauntlet repeatedly is not a testament to bravery, but to biological alignment with one of the most lethal environments on Earth. The surface ocean may shimmer with light and life, but the true test lies below, where the rules are harsher and the consequences final. Down there, in the deep zone, survival is earned dive by dive, scar by scar, in silence so complete that even victory leaves no sound behind.